Welcome to Mia Horror Stories. To make it easier on your eyes, this video plays against a black screen, so you can close your eyes, get comfortable, and let the story take over. But don't relax too much, the ending might just catch you off guard. Stay with me until the very last word. The first time I heard the deep water whistle, nobody was in the lake. Cut across Camp Alderwick at 6:12 in the morning. 3 sharp blasts from the waterfront. The kind of sound that makes every adult on a property stop, pretending they are calm. I was halfway through dragging a crate of kickballs out from under the rec hall porch, my hands dusty, my shirt already sticking to my back in the wet Maine heat, when the whistle went again. 3 blasts. A pause. 3 more. Downhill, beyond the pines, Lake Barlow lay flat and gray under a skin of fog. No splashing. No shouting. No kid yelling that his shoe had floated away. Just the whistle and the lake answering with small, lazy taps against the dock. My name is Evan Hale, 23 male, from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I had been hired as a junior counselor because I knew how to run a soccer drill, keep 10-year-olds from throwing rocks at each other, and smile through minor disasters. At least that was the version I had sold in the interview. The less useful version was that I hated deep water. Not in a dramatic way. I could swim. I had passed the basic test. But once my feet couldn't touch, my body started counting all the empty space under me. I didn't mention that on my application. You don't tell a summer camp you're afraid of the lake. Is that us? Someone called from inside the rec hall. Mara Pike, 27, female, from Bristol, England, ducked out through the screen door with a roll of painter's tape around her wrist and a half-laminated schedule in one hand. She had been at Alderwick for 3 summers and had the confident, slightly fried look of someone who could fix a bunk bed, calm a homesick child, and still remember where the medical forms were filed. She listened for a second, her mouth tightening. "Waterfront," she said. "Campers aren't even here yet," I said. "That's why it's weird." She jogged down the slope. I followed, because not following would have made me look worse than I already felt. The camp was still in that pre-arrival state, where everything seemed staged for people who hadn't entered yet. Cabins swept, but empty, picnic tables lined in perfect rows, name tags stacked on clipboards, sunscreen pumps set out beside tubs of bug spray. The air smelled like lake mud, pine needles, and the burnt coffee someone had left too long in the staff kitchen. At the fork by the nurse's cabin, Noah Brandt caught up with us, breathless and tugging on one sneaker. Noah was 19 male, from Burlington, Vermont, hired as a lifeguard after finishing his first year of college. He had broad shoulders, sun-bleached hair, and the twitchy eagerness of a guy who wanted older staff to notice he was dependable. "I heard the whistle," he said. "That's not me. I swear I didn't touch it." Mara glanced at him. "No one accused you. Your face kind of did. My face has many talents." We reached the waterfront just as another 3 blasts snapped through the fog. Tessa Rowe was standing at the end of the main dock with the emergency whistle in her hand. Tessa, 34, female, from upstate New York, was the waterfront director, and every inch of her looked built around rules. Braided hair tight against her head, red guard shirt tucked in, radio clipped high on her shoulder, rescue tube already slung across her chest, even though the lake was empty. She lowered the whistle when she saw us, but she didn't look embarrassed. She looked angry in a quiet, contained way. "Count the boards," she said. Mara slowed. "Good morning to you too. Count them." The dock was old but well maintained, a long rectangle of sun-bleached planks leading out into the fog. I counted automatically because Tessa's tone made it hard not to. 28 boards from shore to the ladder, then another 6 to the end platform. 34, Noah said. 34, Tessa repeated. Last night there were 35. Mara stared down. A board's missing. 3rd from the ladder. We moved closer. She was right. 1 plank had been removed cleanly, not broken. The screws were gone. No splinters, no jagged edges, just a dark gap where fog collected and the water below shifted softly, making the dock breathe cold air up against my shins. Noah crouched. Maintenance. They don't remove boards before camper arrival, Tessa said. Not without tagging the dock. Could have been loose, I offered, because the human brain loves making stupid explanations when the good ones are worse. Tessa looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were pale and practical. Loose boards don't unscrew themselves and walk away. Behind us, someone came down the path at a fast clip, gravel crunching under dress shoes. Director Leonard Vale, 46, male, from Portland, Maine, arrived with a walkie-talkie in one hand and a staff lanyard already around his neck. He was tall, clean-shaven, and had that camp director habit of turning every expression into reassurance before it reached his face. Even now, he smiled like we had all gathered for a team photo. "What are we looking at?" he asked. Tessa pointed. Leonard's smile faded, but only a little. "All right, that's inconvenient." "No," Tessa said, "that's deliberate." A loon called somewhere out in the fog. The sound came bent and lonely over the water, then broke apart against the tree line. Leonard stepped onto the dock, careful around the gap. Nobody goes out past the first ladder until Nate checks it. Mara folded her arms. "Should we call the sheriff?" "For a missing dock board?" Leonard asked. "For somebody taking apart the waterfront overnight." "We don't know that." Tessa's jaw shifted. "I do." That was when I noticed the laminated binder on the bench by the life jacket rack. It was thick, black, and warped at the corners from old damp. A strip of red tape ran down the spine. Someone had written in block letters, "Deep water protocol" under it, smaller. "Staff only, do not discuss with campers." I looked at Mara, expecting her to roll her eyes or give me a camp bureaucracy face. She didn't. She was watching Leonard. "Is that new?" I asked. Noah answered too quickly. "No, I mean yes. I mean, they showed us during waterfront orientation." "They showed you," Mara said. "Not the whole thing." Tessa picked up the binder before anyone else could touch it. "We are not doing this on the dock." Leonard exhaled through his nose. "Tessa, no, the board is gone." The whistle box was open, and the rope line was moved 6 feet overnight. "We are absolutely doing this." That made everyone look at the water. The swimming area was marked by a floating rope strung with red and white buoys, dividing the shallow beginner section from the darker oval beyond the second platform. In the fog, it was hard to judge distance, but the line did look wrong. It bowed outward, as if someone had dragged its anchor farther from shore. A single buoy knocked softly against another with a hollow plastic clack. Clack, pause, clack. It was a small sound, ordinary. But after Tessa pointed it out, I couldn't stop hearing it. Leonard lifted his radio. "Nate, you awake?" Static scratched. Then a man's voice, rough with sleep. "Been awake since 5. "What broke?" Nate Givens, 58, male, from Bangor, Maine, served as Alderwick's maintenance lead and unofficial historian, though nobody had introduced him that way yet. He appeared a minute later from the equipment, shed side of the path, limping slightly, wearing stained work pants, and carrying a cordless drill like it had offended him personally. He stopped at the missing plank, took off his cap, and stared. Leonard asked, "Did you pull that board?" Nate scratched the gray stubble along his jaw. "No. Could someone have needed it?" "At 6 a.m, Nate said. "For what, breakfast?" Tessa held up the binder. The rope line was moved too. Nate's face changed at that. Not much, just a small tightening around the eyes, the expression of a man who had found water under a door and already knew where the leak began. Leonard saw it too. "Nate, don't look at me like that," Nate said. "Like what? Like you want me to say it's raccoons?" Noah gave a nervous laugh. Nobody joined him. The radio on Leonard's belt hissed before anyone spoke again. "Director, this is June in kitchen. Delivery truck S at the gate. Driver says the chain's cut." Leonard closed his eyes for half a second. Mara murmured, "That feels like a sheriff thing." Leonard lifted the radio. "Copy. Keep him there. I'm coming up." Tessa stepped off the dock. "I'm closing the waterfront." "We don't have campers until noon," Leonard said. "I'm closing it to staff." "Tessa," she held his look. "You hired me to keep children from drowning. That includes taking weird things seriously before children are present." He didn't answer right away. The fog had started to thin, and the far shore of Lake Barlow emerged in pieces. Black spruce, a sliver of granite, the pale roof of the old boathouse across the cove. Camp Alderwick sat outside Millinocket, close enough to town that parents could find it on a map, far enough into the woods that cell service came and went like weather. Lake was private on paper, but everyone knew paper didn't stop fishermen, bored teenagers, or locals who thought summer camps were rich people's playgrounds. "Fine," Leonard said at last. "Waterfront closed until inspected. No one swims, no one boats. We keep this boring." Mara snorted. "Great slogan." Leonard pointed at her. "I mean it. Campers arrive in 6 hours. Parents do not need to hear that someone stole a dock board and clipped a gate chain." "Maybe they do," Tessa said. "And maybe we don't start day one by creating panic around a repair issue." I had only been at Camp Alderwick for 38 hours, but I already understood Leonard's greatest fear. Not danger. Not exactly. His fear was loss of control. You could see it in the way he kept smoothing his lanyard, the way every problem had to be renamed into something smaller before he could look at it. Missing board, repair issue, cut chain, access problem. Words as sandbags. I understood that more than I wanted to. My own flaw worked in the opposite direction. When something scared me, I got quiet and agreeable. I let louder people choose the shape of the problem. It had been useful growing up in a house where arguments filled rooms fast. At a summer camp, it made me look easygoing. Standing on that dock, staring into a gap where a board should have been, it made me feel like furniture. Tessa opened the binder. The pages inside were laminated, old enough that some had yellowed at the edges. She flipped past swim test charts, rescue drills, thunderstorm evacuation routes. Then she stopped at a red divider tab. I saw only the top line before she angled it away. Deep water protocol. Initiation conditions beneath that, in smaller type, a checklist. One item had been circled in grease pencil. Unauthorized alteration of boundary line. Tessa noticed me looking and closed the binder with a flat clap. "Staff meeting," she said. "Now." Leonard's radio hissed again. June's voice came through, sharper this time. "Len, the driver says there's something taped to the gate." He pressed the button. "What?" A pause. Paper rustled over the speaker. June read slowly. No deep water today. No one moved. Then Nate swore under his breath and started walking toward the gate. Leonard caught his arm. Don't. Nate pulled free. Then come with me. Tessa looked out at the lake again, and I followed her gaze despite myself. Fog had lifted enough to show the second platform, the one used for advanced swimmers. It floated beyond the buoy line, square and damp and empty. Something white rested on top of it. At first I thought it was a gull. Then the breeze shifted and it moved. Not alive, just fabric, a shirt maybe, or a towel. Noah shaded his eyes. Was that there before? Tessa didn't answer. Leonard said, nobody goes out there. We can use the rowboat, Noah said. No, Tessa said, so sharply he flinched. It could be someone's stuff. Then it can wait. Mara stepped beside me. Her voice dropped low enough that only I heard it. This is a lot of ceremony for a prank. I wanted to agree. A prank meant local teenagers with bolt cutters. A prank meant somebody laughing behind a tree, filming us on a phone. A prank meant embarrassment, paperwork, maybe one stern visit from a sheriff's deputy who had better things to do. But I kept looking at the shirt on the platform. It wasn't just lying there. It had been placed, spread flat, arms out, collar facing shore. Like whoever left it wanted us to see the shape of a person without giving us one. Leonard seemed to make a decision all at once. His shoulders straightened. The camp director's smile returned, thinner now, stretched over something hard. Here's what we're going to do, he said. Nate and I will check the gate. Tessa, you lock the boats and secure the waterfront. Mara, keep staff away from here and start arrival prep like normal. Evan, go with Tessa. I blinked. Me, you're assigned to Birch Cabin, right? Youngest boys. Yeah, then learn the waterfront boundaries before they do. Tessa did not look thrilled, but she didn't argue. Mara touched my elbow as she passed. Don't fall in, Worcester. Helpful. I'm known for it. The others split off, voices fading into the trees, radios popping with static as the camp woke around us. Somewhere uphill, a truck engine idled at the gate. A screen door banged. A crow complained from the roof of the mess hall. Tessa walked to the equipment shed and unlocked the door. Inside, the air smelled like mildew, plastic, and old rope. Life jackets hung in rows by size. Paddles stood in barrels. Rescue tubes lined one wall like red organs. She took a clipboard from a nail and handed it to me. Inventory, she said. I looked at the sheet. You want me to count life jackets? I want your hands busy so you don't stare at the platform. That was so direct I almost laughed. Is it obvious? Only to lifeguards and people who are also scared. I glanced at her. She grabbed a coil of rope from the shelf. Deep water scares everyone with sense. Fear isn't the problem. Freezing is. Outside, the buoy knocked again. Clack, clack. I counted life jackets. Child small, 12. Child medium, 18. Adult, 9. My handwriting looked worse than usual. Tessa moved around the shed quickly, checking locks, pulling tags, testing the radio charger. She had the efficient anger of someone who had rehearsed this exact routine and hoped never to need it. On the back wall, partly hidden behind stacked kickboards, was a red metal box with a numbered combination lock. The label matched the binder. DWP kit, waterfront director. Only a strip of tamper tape sealed the lid. Or had sealed it. One corner had been peeled up and pressed down again badly, leaving a small gray thumbprint in the adhesive. Tessa, I said. She turned. For a second, all the activity drained out of her face. She crossed the shed in 2 steps and touched the tape without opening the box. Her finger came away dusty. "Did you open it during orientation?" I asked. "No," could Leonard. "No, you're sure?" She looked at me then, and for the first time, she seemed less like a person enforcing rules and more like someone trapped inside them. "I'm the only one who knows the combination," she said. The truck at the gate honked once, long and irritated. From uphill came the muffled sound of Leonard calling someone's name. The whole camp seemed to pause around that horn blast, cabins and pines, and lake holding still under the brightening sky. Tessa picked up the DWP kit. "Where are we taking it?" I asked. She looked toward the lake, then toward the path leading uphill. There were 2 obvious choices. We could bring the box to Leonard and fold it into his version of the morning, the one where everything stayed manageable until parents started unloading duffel bags. Or we could open it here without permission and find out what somebody had already touched. Tessa held the box between us. "You saw the tape," she said, "so now you're part of this." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her I was just a junior counselor, that my job was soccer drills and sunscreen reminders, and making sure 8-year-olds didn't put frogs in each other's shoes. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What happens if we open it?" Tessa's grip tightened around the handle. "If we need what's inside," she said, "then we're already late." And from out on the second platform, across the flat gray water, the white shirt shifted again in the breeze like it was trying to sit up. Story ledger Tessa didn't open the DWP kit right away. That bothered me more than if she had snapped the lock off with a rock. She stood in the equipment shed with the red metal box in both hands, listening to the camp wake up around us, while dust spun in the blade of light coming through the warped doorframe. The lake made small working sounds behind us, water under wood, rope ticking against metal, a loose buoy knocking the same 2-note complaint over and over. Clack, clack. Then the radio on her shoulder cracked alive. "Waterfront, this is Len." Leonard's voice had lost its polish. "Tessa, respond." She pressed the button. "Go, we've got a problem at the gate." That was already true. "Tessa," she looked at me. There was a choice in her face, and I hated that I could read it. Open the kit and become the person creating a bigger problem, or answer the director and let the morning pull us along. She set the DWP kit back on the shelf without unlocking it. "On our way," she said. I almost asked why she didn't open it. I wanted to. The question got as far as my teeth and stayed there. Instead, I followed her up the path because I was still the new guy, still too practiced at letting other people decide how bad things were allowed to be. By the time we reached the gravel road, the delivery truck was angled across the entrance, with its hazard lights blinking orange against the trees. The chain that normally stretched between 2 cedar posts lay in the dirt, cut clean through one link. A white box truck idled beyond it, refrigeration unit rattling on top like a bad cough. On the side, blue letters, Red Pine State, FOODSRVIC. Leonard stood with Nate and a woman in a flower, dusted hoodie near the gate. June Mercer, 41, female, from Lewiston, Maine, was the camp's kitchen lead, and she had the expression of someone whose entire morning had been mugged. He held a clipboard against her chest with one arm. The other hand kept worrying a silver ring on her thumb. The driver, a thin man in his 50s with a cap pulled low, leaned against the truck and smoked despite June glaring at him. "You're late," June told Tessa, though we were. "Where's the note?" Tessa asked. Leonard held it up inside a clear plastic sandwich bag, which would have seemed sensible if his hands hadn't been shaking slightly. The note was written on plain printer paper in thick black marker. No deep water today, no signature, no threat, nothing dramatic. The kind of message that made your brain reach for innocent reasons and find none that fit. "Where was it?" Tessa asked. "Taped to the inside of the gatepost," June said. "Like whoever put it there was already on camp property." Nate crouched by the cut chain. Bolt cutters, not a hacksaw. The delivery driver flicked ash into the dirt. "I'm just saying, I can come back tomorrow." "No," June snapped. "You cannot come back tomorrow. I have 112 children eating lunch here in 5 hours. 114, Leonard said automatically. 2 late additions. June turned on him. "Then I definitely need the food." That was the concrete shape the morning took. Not a haunted lake. Not yet. A delivery truck with milk, chicken, lettuce, eggs, and frozen hamburger patties needed unloading into the kitchen walk-in before the refrigeration unit gave out or the driver left. Parents would arrive at noon. Campers would arrive hungry, carsick, sunburned, already sticky with bug spray. Meanwhile, the waterfront was compromised. The gate had been breached, and someone had left us a note about the one place we couldn't ignore. Leonard checked his watch. "We solve what's in front of us." Nate, fix the chain. June, unload the truck. Tessa, secure the waterfront and file an incident report. Tessa stared at him. "And the sheriff?" "I called non-emergency." "You called non-emergency?" His jaw tightened. "It's vandalism." "I described it as vandalism." "Deputy said they'll send someone when available." "When available," Tessa repeated. "We are not dialing 911 over a cut chain and a dock board." "No," she said. "We're apparently waiting until a child gives us a reason." Noah came jogging up the road behind us, red guard shirt half tucked in, cheeks flushed. "Sorry, I was locking the boats. The canoe rack padlock is gone." Everyone stopped again. Leonard closed his eyes. Tessa turned slowly. "Gone as in unlocked. Gone as in not there. Cut, I think. 2 canoes are shifted, but they're still on the rack. I didn't touch anything." Nate stood, knees popping. "I'll look." "You'll fix the gate first," Leonard said. Nate pointed toward the lake without looking at him. "If someone took a canoe out before dawn, the gate can wait." That was the first time the word someone started to feel heavy. Not a prankster. Not a vague person with bolt cutters. A person who might still be nearby. A person who had moved with purpose through a camp full of unlocked sheds and empty cabins. A person who knew the waterfront well enough to move the rope line and leave the second platform staged in fog. Leonard lowered his voice. "Nate, parents arrive in under 4 hours. And if we're missing a boat, we count boats. We don't escalate." June made a hard little laugh. "Len, I say this with love, but you are trying to paperclip a bear trap shut." The driver crushed his cigarette under his boot. "I'm giving you people 20 minutes to start unloading, then I'm calling dispatch." That did it. Leonard's face changed from defensive to managerial. "Fine, Evan Noah, help June unload. Mara can cover arrival setup." Tessa said, "Noah stays with me. I need bodies. I need lifeguards. No one is swimming." That's not the only thing lifeguards do. The argument ran into a brief, ugly silence. Somewhere past the trees, the camp bell rang once by accident or habit, a hollow metal sound from the dining hall porch. Mara appeared with a stack of welcome packets hugged to her chest. Mara Pike had a talent for arriving at the exact moment people were least proud of themselves. She looked at the cut chain, the bagged note, the idling truck, then at me. "Everyone looks awful," she said. "Good team building." Leonard rubbed his forehead. "Mara, take Evan and unload the truck with June. Noah and Tessa check the canoes. Nate gets the gate functional. I will call Deputy Rollins again and make it clear we need someone before arrival." Tessa didn't like it, but this time she accepted the compromise. "No one goes near the second platform." "No one is going near the second platform," Leonard said. His tone implied the matter was settled, which made the warning feel less settled. The driver opened the back of the truck, and cold vapor rolled out carrying the smell of cardboard, raw meat packaging, and wet metal. Mara climbed in first, reading labels off boxes, while June directed us toward the kitchen loading dock. We formed a line. Chicken cases, milk crates, lettuce, apples, more milk. The practical work helped at first. It gave my fear handles. Lift, carry, stack. Don't look at the lake through the gap in the trees. Don't think about the white shirt on the platform. "Evan," Mara said, passing me a crate of eggs. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "Face like you're listening to a dentist explain money." "I'm fine. Nobody who says that near raw chicken is fine." June shoved open the kitchen door with her hip. "If either of you drops eggs, I will become the threat." The kitchen was warmer than outside and smelled of bleach, old coffee, and yeast rolls thawing under plastic wrap. Industrial fans pushed the air around without cooling it. June had lists taped everywhere. Allergens, cabin meal counts, dish crew assignments, a handwritten reminder that said no peanut butter in main line, EVAN. This means everyone, though I had never touched the peanut butter. I pointed at it. "Why does that feel personal?" June glanced up. "I write all warnings like I'm disappointed in a specific man. Saves time." For a few minutes, we almost laughed like normal staff on a normal bad morning. Then the walk-in cooler alarm started beeping. June went still. The sound was thin and fast, coming from the stainless panel beside the cooler door. She crossed the kitchen and checked the display. "No, no, no, no." "What?" Mara asked. "Temperature's rising." The delivery driver appeared in the doorway. "That ain't my issue if your cooler's bad." June rounded on him. "Your truck arrived 40 minutes late because you got lost on a single road. I got stopped by your creepy little gate situation." Leonard's voice came over Mara's radio from the office channel. "All staff, listen up. Arrival delayed by 30 minutes. Parents have been emailed and texted. We're telling them road maintenance near the entrance." Mara and I looked at each other. June pressed buttons on the cooler panel. The beeping continued. "What happens if the cooler fails?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "Lunch becomes crackers and rage." "No, really. Raw chicken has to stay cold. Milk has to stay cold. If the compressor's out and we can't get it fixed fast, I have to reject part of delivery or move it to the backup freezer and hope nothing spoils. Except the backup freezer is in the boathouse annex." Mara's head snapped toward her. "The waterfront boathouse. Old one across the service path, not the lake one. But yes, down there." "Of course it is," I said. June opened the cooler. Damp air breathed out. The light inside flickered. Water ticked from somewhere near the evaporator fan onto a cardboard box. Mara crouched. "Is that new?" June's face had gone pale under the kitchen heat. "That drain line was fine yesterday." Nate's voice crackled over the radio. "Len, need you at the canoe rack." Leonard answered. "Status," a pause. Nate said, "We're missing one." The kitchen seemed to shrink around the beep of the cooler alarm. Mara whispered, "One canoe." Nate continued over the radio. "Old green Grumman. 2 paddles gone. Adult vest missing from the rack." Tessa's voice cut in. "Search the shoreline." "Already looking," Nate said. "No drag marks near the rack. Whoever took it carried it or launched from the side path." Noah spoke next, breathless. "There's something else." "The second platform," Tessa interrupted sharply. "Noah," Leonard came on. "What about it?" Noah didn't answer. Mara set down the eggs. "I hate when people stop talking." The radio hissed. Then Tessa said, "The item on the platform is not a shirt. It's a staff sweatshirt." I felt my stomach drop in a slow, physical way. Leonard asked, "Can you identify it?" Another pause. "Tessa," he pressed. "It looks like Connor S." June put a hand on the counter. Mara looked at me, and I understood from her face that I was supposed to know the name. I didn't. "Who's Connor?" I asked. June answered softly. "Connor Bell, 21, male, from South Portland. Ropes course counselor. He came in late last night after his other job. He was supposed to help me set breakfast." "Did he?" Mara asked. June shook her head. "I thought he overslept." Leonard's voice came over the radio again, too controlled. "Everyone stay where you are. I'm checking staff cabins." "No," Tessa said. "We start a missing person procedure now. We don't know he's missing. His canoe is gone. We don't know it's his canoe. His sweatshirt is on the deep platform. We don't know it's his sweatshirt." "Len," Tessa said, and the way she said his name made the kitchen feel colder than the cooler. "This is exactly why the protocol exists." Nobody spoke for 3 seconds. Then Leonard said, "Do not use that phrase on an open channel." Mara's eyes narrowed. There it was. Not fear of a prank. Not irritation at paperwork. Recognition. The cooler alarm beeped and beeped. June slapped the panel hard enough to rattle it. "I'm sorry, but while the secret Lake Club argues, I need to know whether I'm feeding children today." That forced us back into motion. Mara called 2 other staff to help move perishables. I carried milk crates into the walk-in and stacked them under the sweating fan while the alarm drilled into my ears. June found a thermometer, cursed at it, shook it, cursed it again. The compressor kicked once, shuddered, and died. The danger had split into 2 problems, both with clocks attached. A possible missing counselor on or near the lake. A failing cooler full of food for arriving campers. Leonard arrived 10 minutes later with his hair damp at the temples. Connor's bunk is empty. His phone is on his bed. Wallet too. Tessa was with him, carrying the DWP binder against her chest. Noah trailed behind, looking younger than 19. Mara asked, "Shoes?" Leonard blinked. "What? Are his shoes there?" "His work boots are gone." "That seems relevant," Mara said. June checked her clipboard. "He signed in at 11:42 p.m. I have the log. I told him to grab cereal bins from dry storage if he was awake early." "Did anyone see him this morning?" Tessa asked. No one answered. Leonard rubbed both hands over his face. For one moment, he looked less like a director and more like a man standing at the edge of a mistake he couldn't rename. I called Rollins. "He's 25 minutes out." Police dispatch said if we have confirmed signs of distress, call 911. "Missing adult, empty canoe, sweatshirt on platform," Tessa said. "That is distress. Or Connor took a canoe at dawn, left his sweatshirt, and walked back through the woods. With his phone on his bed, Noah asked, then seemed to regret speaking. Leonard turned on him. "I need facts, not panic." Noah's face reddened. "I'm giving you facts." I surprised myself by saying, "The note said no deep water today." Everyone looked at me. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. "I mean, if someone left that before we found the sweatshirt, they either knew something happened or wanted us to find something." Tessa nodded once, not approvingly, exactly. More like she was marking that I had finally said the obvious. Leonard paced to the kitchen window. Through it, the lake was a gray flicker between trunks. "We can't send staff out on the water if someone is intentionally interfering with equipment. We can't leave Connor out there if he's hurt," Tessa said. "No one is leaving him. Then authorize a shoreline search and boat check." Sheriff said, "Wait. The sheriff is not here." June's cooler alarm beeped again, she said, and my backup freezer. Leonard turned. "What about it? We need to move meat and dairy to the annex freezer now, or I reject delivery, and we have no proper lunch. The annex is near the waterfront." "No one goes alone," Tessa said immediately. Mara lifted a hand. "I'll go with June." "I need you on arrivals," Leonard said. "Arrivals are delayed. For 30 minutes, not forever." "I'll go," I said. The words came out before the fear could grab them. Tessa looked at me sharply. "You don't have to volunteer for everything." "I'm not." My mouth was dry. "I can carry boxes. I know where the annex is if someone points." Mara studied my face. "Evan, I'm fine." There's that word again. Leonard seized on it. "Good." Evan and June moved perishables to the annex freezer. "Stay on the service path. Do not approach the dock. Noah, you go with them." Tessa said, "Noah should be searching. Noah is a lifeguard and can keep them away from the water." That logic was bad, but usable. Leonard liked usable. Tessa pulled me aside before I could pick up a crate. She held the DWP binder close enough that I could smell lake damp on the plastic pages. "Stay off the dock," she said. I heard. "No, listen. If you see anything that makes you want to get closer to the water, you don't. You call me. You call Leonard. You call 911 if you have to. But you do not investigate." "Okay." Her eyes held mine. People drown trying to turn uncertainty into certainty. That lodged under my ribs. June loaded us with what she called the triage items: chicken, milk, deli turkey, cheese. Noah took the heaviest cooler. I took 2 boxes stacked, so high I had to turn my head sideways to see the path. June carried a thermometer and keys, muttering inventory numbers like a prayer. The service path ran behind the dining hall and down toward a cluster of older buildings screened by hemlocks. The annex freezer was in a squat cinderblock structure beside the old boathouse, not directly on the lake, but close enough that the air cooled as we descended. My shoes slipped on damp pine needles. Mosquitoes whined around my ears. Somewhere, a generator droned. The lake kept flashing through gaps in the trees, too calm for all the noise around it. Noah tried to make conversation. "Connor's probably fine." June said, "Don't do that." "What?" "Don't say probably fine when you mean you're scared." He shut up. At the annex, June fumbled the key twice before getting the door open. Cold air rolled out. The freezer hummed steadily, blessedly normal. We stacked boxes fast. The work burned my arms and gave me something to focus on besides the shoreline visible beyond the old boathouse. On the 3rd trip from the golf cart June had commandeered, Noah stopped walking. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I listened. At first I heard only the freezer hum insects, my own breathing. Then a faint knocking came from the old boathouse. 3 taps, a pause, 3 taps. June whispered, "Is that someone?" Noah set his cooler down. "Connor," Tessa's warning moved through my head. If you see anything that makes you want to get closer to the water, you don't. The old boathouse sat 20 yards away, half on land, half over the shallows, its green paint peeling in strips. A narrow side door faced us. A rusted padlock hung open on the hasp. 3 taps came again, softer this time. Noah had already started toward it. "Don't," I said. He looked back. "If he's hurt in there, radio Tessa." He grabbed his shoulder radio. Static. He tried again. "Waterfront, this is Noah. We're at the annex." We heard knocking from the old boathouse. Possible person inside. Only static answered. June checked her phone. No bars. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Then a sound like wood scraping across wood. Noah's face did something complicated. Fear, duty, pride. 19 years old and desperate not to be the guy who waited while someone needed him. "I'm just opening the door," he said. "Noah," June said. He moved faster. I followed because letting him go alone felt worse than disobeying Tessa. That was how bad choices happened, I guess. Not in one dramatic leap, but by comparison. This danger versus that shame. This rule versus that person. The grass around the boathouse was wet enough to soak my socks. The side door smelled of algae and old gasoline. Noah pulled it open. Inside was dim and close. Dusty oars hung on pegs. A tarp-covered motor sat on a stand. Sunlight came through cracks in the far wall in thin white cuts. The knocking stopped the moment the door opened. "Connor," Noah called. No answer. June stayed outside. "Please tell me something normal." Then I saw the paddle. It lay on the floorboards near the waterside doors, wet with fresh scratches down the blade. Beside it was an orange adult life vest, the missing one. Noah stepped in. A board creaked under his foot. From beneath the boathouse, under the floor, someone coughed. It was a wet, human sound. Noah dropped to his knees. "Connor," a voice came through the cracks, thin and wrecked. "Don't let them bring the kids." June clapped a hand over her mouth. I crouched despite myself, putting my face near the floorboards. The wood smelled rotten and cold. "Connor," I said, "can you hear me?" "Are you hurt?" The answer came after a breath. "Deep water," he whispered. They moved it. A thud struck the underside of the floor hard enough to shake dust loose from the rafters. Noah jerked back. Outside, from the direction of the dining hall, the camp bell began ringing over and over. Not by accident now. Fast, urgent. Mara's voice burst through Noah's radio, distorted but clear enough. "Parents at the gate, early arrivals. We need all staff up front now." Under the floor, Connor coughed again. Then he said, barely audible, "Lock the boathouse." And the water beneath us slapped hard against the pilings, as if something large had just shifted in the dark space below. First thing Noah did was try to pull up the floorboard. It was a stupid instinct, and also the only human one. Connor was under us. Hurt, scared, breathing through old planks with lake water slapping somewhere below his body. So Noah got his fingers into a gap between 2 warped boards and yanked like panic could substitute for tools. "Stop," June snapped. "You'll break your fingers." Noah didn't stop. His face had gone glossy with sweat, and the tendons in his neck stood out as he strained. The board groaned but didn't come loose. "Connor, hang on." Under the floor, Connor coughed again. "Don't open it," he whispered. That froze Noah more effectively than June had. The old boathouse sat at the lower edge of Camp Alderwick, tucked behind hemlocks, and a stand of alder shrubs that gave the camp its name. Uphill and northeast was the dining hall, where the bell was still clanging. Beyond that, The main gravel drive curved toward the gate. West of us, maybe 60 yards through thin trees, was the active waterfront. Life jacket shed, main dock, roped swim area, and the second platform beyond it. South of us was Lake Barlow itself, pushing under the boathouse through gaps in the rotten support walls. We were boxed between food safety, camper arrivals, and a missing counselor under wet wood. June stepped outside and tried her phone again. One bar, no, none, damn it. Noah thumbed his radio. Tessa, this is Noah. Connor's under the old boathouse. He's alive. We need help. Static. He moved to the doorway, held the radio higher, tried again. Waterfront, do you copy? Mara's voice came back instead, chopped into pieces. Front gate, parents, Leonard says, where are you? Noah shouted into the radio. Connor is under the old boathouse. A hiss, then Mara, say again. Connor is where? Under the boathouse. Under the radio squealed and died into static. June pointed uphill. I'll run to get Tessa. No, I said. It came out harder than I meant. She turned. Excuse me. Tessa said nobody goes alone. June opened her mouth, then looked at the boathouse, the lake, Noah, me. The fight drained out of her shoulders. Fine. Then one of you runs. Noah shook his head. I'm not leaving Connor, which left me. The path back to the dining hall looked longer than it had 5 minutes earlier. Wet pine needles, roots, the golf cart by the annex with its back still loaded with milk and chicken, the lake flashing between trunks like something watching from the side of your eye. I wanted to be the kind of person who said, I'll go, clean and brave. Instead, I said, lock the door first. June stared at me. That's what he told us, I said. He said lock the boathouse. Noah backed toward the door. You heard him, do it. The outside hasp was rusted but functional. June found a spare padlock on her ring and snapped it shut through the hasp, locking Connor inside or locking something else out, depending on which fear you let yourself believe. That was the awful part. Every choice had two meanings. I ran uphill, not gracefully, not like movies. My shoes slid twice in the mud. My lungs burned before I reached the kitchen path. The camp bell got louder, not cleaner, a frantic iron banging that bounced between cabins. When I came around the dining hall, I nearly collided with a woman carrying a toddler and a duffel bag. Is Check in here? She asked, annoyed and confused. Behind her, 3 cars had pulled past the cut gate and parked crookedly near the office. Parents stood around with coffee cups and folded registration emails, looking toward the bell. A boy in a Minecraft hoodie kicked gravel at his sister. The sister cried because she had already dropped her stuffed rabbit in mud. Normal life had arrived at the worst possible time. Mara was on the office porch with a clipboard, smiling so hard her face looked painful. Leonard stood beside her, speaking to a man in a sheriff's department uniform. Deputy Rollins, early 40s, male, from Penobscot County, had a square body, close-cropped hair, and the calm, skeptical posture of someone used to being called for problems that had already been exaggerated by 3 people. His cruiser was parked just inside the gate, lights off. Tessa was not there. Mara, I shouted. Her eyes found me, and whatever she saw in my face made her drop the smile instantly. She stepped away from the parents. What? We found Connor. Leonard turned so fast his lanyard swung. Where? Under the old boathouse, alive, but something's wrong. He said not to open it. He said lock it. Deputy Rollins frowned. Under the boathouse, how? I don't know. Under the floor. Noah and June are with him. Leonard's face tightened. You left them. They're together. Mara was already moving. "Where's Tessa?" "Waterfront," Leonard said, checking the platform with Nate. "I told her nobody goes to the platform," I said. Leonard shot me a look. "She didn't go on the water. She went to get binoculars." Rollins lifted one hand. "Everyone slow down. Missing adult located conscious. We need fire rescue for extraction if he's trapped." "Yes," Mara said. "Call them." Leonard said, "We don't know he's trapped." "He is under a boathouse," Mara said. Rollins keyed his shoulder mic and stepped away, speaking in a low, professional voice. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Professional help had entered the story, and the camp still felt like it was tilting. The first attempt to solve it was simple. Adults with authority would go to the boathouse, get Connor, and keep parents away from the lake. It failed in less than 4 minutes. We reached the service path as a group. Rollins first, Leonard close behind, Mara and me following, with 2 parents trailing until Mara turned and politely threatened them with registration forms. The dining hall bell finally stopped. Its absence left my ears ringing. At the annex, June was standing outside the locked boathouse, both hands pressed to her mouth. Noah was on the ground near the door, one knee bleeding through his khakis. "What happened?" Leonard asked. Noah pointed at the building. He started yelling. Connor's voice came from inside, muffled and raw. "Do not bring them here." Rollins approached the door. "Connor Bell, Deputy Rollins, we're going to get you out." "No," the shout cracked at the end, not dramatic, damaged. Rollins paused. "Are you injured?" Silence. Then Connor said, "They put it under me." June whispered, "Put what?" Rollins looked at Leonard. Leonard looked at the lake. The deputy tried the door. Locked. June handed him the key. But before he used it, Tessa came through the trees from the direction of the waterfront, with Nate behind her. She carried the DWP binder. Nate had a crowbar, a coil of rope, and the grim expression of a man who had stopped hoping for ordinary explanations. "Don't open that door yet," Tessa said. Rollins turned. "And you are Tessa Rowe, waterfront director." "I'm opening the door." "You open it without checking the underside, and you could dump him into the lake." Rollins' skepticism flickered. "Explain." Tessa pointed to the boathouse. "Old structure. Half the floor is over water. If he's wedged under the interior decking or on a support beam, pulling boards from the top could shift rotten lumber. We need to look from the water side." Leonard seized on that. "So we need the boat." "No," Connor shouted from inside. "No boats." That stopped everyone. Mara stepped closer to the wall. "Connor, it's Mara. We're not sending campers down here. Just tell us what happened." For a few seconds, there was only the sound of him breathing. Then he said, "I followed the light." Nate's face went tight. "What light?" Rollins asked. "On the platform, before dawn, I thought somebody was swimming." Tessa closed her eyes briefly. "You went out alone. I took the canoe. I know. I heard the whistle from the shed and thought," he coughed. "I thought it was Noah messing around." Noah looked sick. Connor continued, voice scraping. "Rope line wasn't where it should be." Platform looked closer. "It was," Mara whispered. "What does that mean?" Tessa answered without looking at her. "Fog and moved boundary markers. You misjudged distance. Current does the rest." Lake Barlow looked still from shore, but Tessa had told us during orientation that the cove had a slow lateral pull, where a cold spring fed into the deeper basin. It could nudge a tired swimmer sideways without obvious ripples. At the time, I had nodded like my palms weren't sweating. Rollins crouched near the wall. "Connor, did the canoe flip?" "No, someone took it." "Who?" "I didn't see." The answer moved through us like cold air. The second attempt began with Nate trying to access the underside from land. He and Rollins moved around the boathouse to the narrow strip where the back wall overhung the shallows. The rest of us stayed near the door. Tessa kept one hand on the binder like it might bolt. I could see the active waterfront through the trees now. The main dock to the west, empty life jacket racks, the buoy rope bowed wrong, and beyond it the second platform with Connor's gray staff sweatshirt spread on the boards. It looked closer than it should have. That thought made my skin prickle. Nate lay flat on his stomach at the edge of the boathouse and shined a flashlight underneath. Can't see him. Too much cross-bracing. Rollins got down beside him. "Connor, can you move toward my voice?" "No." "Why not?" A pause. Ankle. June made a soft sound. "Broken." "Caught. Maybe broken." Nate shifted the flashlight. "Water's higher than yesterday." Tessa looked toward the lake. "Winds pushing into the cove." "What does that mean?" Leonard asked. "It means the space under there is shrinking." I pictured Connor on his back or stomach in darkness, like water rising around him, ankle trapped between old beams, while adults argued above him. My own feet felt too far from the ground. Nate tried to pry loose an exterior slat near the waterline. It came away with a wet crack. He reached inside, shoulder deep, then jerked back, cursing. "What?" Rollins asked. "Nail or wire?" Nate held up his hand. Blood ran from a slice across his palm. Not life-threatening, but deep enough to drip onto the mud. Something sharp rigged under there. "Rigged," Leonard said. Nate wrapped his hand in a rag. "I know what a loose nail feels like. That weren't it." Rollins' radio crackled. "SKU unit en route. ETA 18 minutes." It sounded small until you looked at the water pushing against the pilings. Tessa opened the binder at last, flipping to the red tab with controlled violence. Deep water protocol says if a staff member is located in or near the old boathouse after unauthorized boundary movement, you secure 3 points: waterfront access, boathouse access, and arrival road. Nobody enters the water until rope line is verified. Rollins looked at her. "This is in your camp manual. It's an internal safety procedure." "Based on what?" No one answered fast enough. That was when the terrible misdirection happened. A scream came from the active waterfront. High, human, young. Every adult turned. Then another scream and a splash. Noah was already running. Tessa shouted, "Noah, stop." But he didn't. His knee was bleeding. His radio bounced on his shoulder, and he sprinted through the trees toward the main dock with the kind of speed only guilt produces. I followed because Mara followed, because Tessa followed, because fear is contagious. We burst out at the waterfront, expecting a child in the lake. Instead, 2 12-year-old boys stood ankle-deep in the shallows beside the first ladder, both white-faced, one pointing at the water and screaming, "There's a hand! There's a hand!" Their mother was on the beach in sandals, yelling at them to get out, unable to decide whether to go in after them. A little girl sobbed behind the life jacket rack. Noah reached the boys first and dragged them backward by their shirt collars with more force than gentleness. "Out now," the mother shouted. "Don't touch my kids." Tessa cut through that with a voice like a whistle blast. "Ma'am, move behind the rope." Now, I saw it then. Pale fingers under the dock, bobbing in the shadow near the missing board. For one frozen second, my brain made a body. A drowned person tangled under the planks. Connor somehow moved from the boathouse to the dock. Someone else. Then Nate arrived, limping hard, and hooked the thing with his crowbar. It rolled over in the water. A glove. A pale latex cleaning glove, stuffed with lake weed and tied at the wrist with fishing line. The mother started crying from anger and relief. "What is wrong with this place?" Leonard had arrived behind us, panting. "I am so sorry. We had a restricted area posted." "No, you didn't," she snapped. She was right. In the chaos, no one had taped off the beach. No one had assigned a staff member to physically block the waterfront. Leonard's attempt to keep things normal had left a clear path from parked cars to the lake. Tessa stared at the glove hanging from Nate's crowbar, like weed dripping from the fingers. It was placed. Rollins, who had followed more slowly, took the glove into an evidence bag. His skepticism was gone now. Everyone away from the water. "Mr. Vale, I need your staff to move all arrivals to the rec hall immediately." "No exceptions." Leonard nodded. This time, he didn't argue. The trap tightened after that because the camp finally began reacting correctly, but too late. Mara took over parents with a voice so cheerful it could have cut glass. She redirected families to the rec hall, promising coffee, registration, and a minor waterfront delay. While June returned to the annex because the food still mattered. Because even in emergencies, someone has to think about milk temperatures. Noah stayed at the beach, shaking, his knee bleeding into his sock. Tessa ordered him to sit, and for once he listened. Rollins called in the glove, the note, the missing canoe, and Connor trapped under the boathouse. His tone changed with each detail. Vandalism became possible assault. Possible assault became active scene. Then the camp lost power. It happened with a soft thump from the direction of the generator shed, followed by the death of every mechanical hum I hadn't realized I was hearing. The kitchen fan stopped. The annex freezer stopped. The office printer stopped. Even the air seemed to lose structure. June's voice came over the radio. "Please tell me that was local." Nate answered, "Generator shed S by the maintenance loop. I'm checking." Rollins said, "Nobody goes alone." "I'm bleeding already," Nate replied. "Might as well collect the set." "Nate," Tessa warned. A second later, from the boathouse channel, Connor began shouting again. "Water's at my chest." That erased the generator. We ran back to the old boathouse. The geography of camp had become a triangle of failures. Gate and parents uphill. Active waterfront west, boathouse and annex low by the cove. Every point needed people. Every path between them took time. Every time we moved, something else went unguarded. At the boathouse, Connor's voice was weaker. Rollins tried to keep him talking while Nate, one-handed now, and Tessa inspected the side wall. The water had risen under the structure, pushed in by wind. It slapped higher on the pilings, brown, green, and cold, carrying pine needles and flecks of foam. "Fire rescue?" Leonard asked. 10 minutes, Rollins said. Connor coughed. "I can't keep my head up much longer." Tessa opened the DWP binder again. Her finger moved down the checklist, her lips pressed together. "What?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Tessa," she looked at me then. "There's a crawl access." Nate swore. Leonard said, "Where?" "From inside the annex freezer room," she said. "Old utility hatch. Leads into the boathouse support bay. It's narrow, but someone small can get eyes on him and pass a rope." Mara, who had just arrived from the rec hall, stared. "Why is that not the first thing anyone mentioned?" "Because it was sealed after an accident in 2009, Nate said. "What accident?" "Not now," Tessa said. Rollins asked, "Can rescue use it?" "If they get here in time," Tessa said. Connor made a sound under the floor that wasn't a word. Everyone looked at the water. That was the point where my private fear stopped being private. The crawl access meant darkness, cold, tight space, and lake water. It meant going toward the thing my body had spent years avoiding. It also meant Connor might drown while we waited for better qualified people. Tessa saw it in my face. No, I swallowed. I fit. No, Mara doesn't. Noah's hurt. Nate's hand is cut. You need to direct from outside. Leonard won't fit. Leonard flinched like I had slapped him with the truth. Rollins said, I can't authorize an untrained staff member to enter a confined space. From under the boathouse, Connor whispered, please. That single word broke something orderly in the group. June appeared at the annex door, pale and furious. The hatch is real. It's behind the old shelving. But the freezer is warming with the power out, so whatever we're doing, do it now. Rollins spoke into his radio, asking rescue for ETA. The answer came back through static. Blocked road. A fallen pine across the lower access lane. 5 additional minutes, maybe more. Nobody said the obvious. They didn't have to. 5 minutes was a lifetime if water was at your chest and rising. Tessa's hands shook once, then steadied. She took the red DWP kit from Nate, who must have retrieved it from the shed, while the rest of us were chasing the glove. The tamper tape was already broken. She spun the combination and opened it. Inside were things that made terrible practical sense. Glow sticks, trauma shears, a waterproof flashlight, 2 chemical hand warmers, a compact throw line, zip ties, a laminated map of the cove, and an old Polaroid photograph sealed in plastic. I only glimpsed the photo. A younger Nate, a younger Leonard, a boy on a dock with his face scratched out in black marker. Tessa took the flashlight and rope. Evan, she said, and her voice was different now. Not soft, not kind, honest. You go only as far as you can breathe. You keep the rope tied to your harness. You do not untie for any reason. If I say back, you come back, Rollins objected. This is not, Connor's voice cut through the floorboards, thin as thread. There's someone outside. We all turned toward the lake. At the mouth of the cove, beyond the second platform, the missing green canoe drifted out of the fog. Empty. One paddle lay across its seats. The other was gone. For a moment, nobody moved. The canoe turned slowly in the current, its bow angled toward open water. Then something bright orange bobbed behind it on a length of rope. A second life vest, not the one from the boathouse. A child-sized vest. Mara whispered, no. From uphill, the rec hall erupted in confused shouting. A parent's voice rose above the rest. Where's my son? And just like that, waiting stopped being an option. The child-sized life vest bobbed behind the canoe like bait. That was the first clean thought I had. Not proof, not certainty, just the shape of the thing. The canoe had not drifted back by accident with a vest tied to it. The fake hand under the dock had not floated itself into place. The note had not crawled onto the gate. Somebody wanted us looking in 3 directions at once. The cove, the rec hall, the boathouse. And it was working. From uphill, the shouting grew louder. A mother was calling a boy's name over and over, each repetition thinner than the last. Dylan. Mara turned toward the sound. That's the kid from the dock. Minecraft hoodie. Leonard's face went slack. No, he was with his mother. He was, Mara said, until everyone started moving. Deputy Rollins spoke into his radio. Possible missing juvenile on camp property. Need additional units. Fire rescue still delayed by obstruction. I need ETA. Static answered him first. Then dispatch came back broken and distant. 12 minutes tree removal, Connor coughed under the boathouse. A wet, horrible cough. Tessa, he rasped. Tessa looked from the canoe to the boathouse to the path uphill. Every option was bad. You could see her doing triage in her head and hating the math. Rollins pointed at Leonard. You and Mara take the rec hall, lock it down, confirm head count. Nobody leaves that building. Mara nodded once. Evan, I was looking at the crawl hatch door in the annex, though I hadn't moved yet. She understood before I spoke. No, she said quietly. Connor coughed again. This time, he didn't manage words afterward. Tessa grabbed the compact throw line from the DWP kit and shoved the waterproof flashlight into my hand. Harness. Nate was already pulling an old climbing harness from a hook near the annex freezer, probably left from rope's core storage or some past emergency nobody wanted to name. His cut hand had bled through the rag. He worked with his teeth and his good fingers, face gray from pain. Rollins stepped in front of me. Cannot order you in there. I know. I'm not even sure I can allow it. Then don't allow it, Tessa said. Document that you objected. Rollins looked at her. That's not how this works. No, she said. How this works is he goes in far enough to pass a rope to Connor, and if the floor shifts, we haul them both back. The deputy stared at the boathouse, at the water rising under it, at the empty canoe turning in the mouth of the cove. He made a decision with his jaw before he made it with words. Rope on him at all times, he said. No hero nonsense. If I say out, you come out. Tessa clipped the line to my harness. Her hands were quick and hard. Listen to me, she said. You will panic. Your body will lie to you. It will tell you there's no air when there is air. It will tell you the water is deeper than it is. You count. 4 in, 4 out. You follow the left wall. Hatch goes straight for 6 feet, then doglegs right under the boathouse. Connor should be near the central crossbeam. You do not untie. What if the rope catches? Then you say it catches. What if I can't say anything? She pushed a whistle into my palm. 1 blast means pull. Continuous means pull hard. The metal was cold and tasted faintly of old disinfectant when I put it between my teeth. June appeared beside the annex door with a headlamp. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. I found knee pads in the storage bin. Put them on. It was absurd. Knee pads. Connor drowned, and a child might be missing. But I put them on because practical people save your life with absurd things. Noah stood near the boathouse wall, pale and shaking. I should go. I'm the lifeguard. You're hurt, Tessa said. I'm the lifeguard. You are injured and rattled. Sit down before you make me assign someone to hold you. He looked like he might argue, then his knee buckled slightly. He sat on an overturned bucket and covered his face with both hands. Nate handed me the flashlight. Crawl space is old. Don't trust any board that looks too clean. That made no sense to me, and he saw it. New wood means someone changed it, he said. Changed it means maybe trapped. The word landed between us. Trapped. Not accident. Not prank. Not only vandalism. Human hands. The annex freezer room was already warming. Boxes of chicken and milk sat stacked against the wall, sweating in the dead air. June and Rollins shoved an empty shelving unit aside, revealing a plywood panel behind it painted the same dull gray as the wall. Nate pried it open. Damp air breathed out. The smell hit first. Rotten wood, like mud, mouse droppings, old metal. The opening was barely wider than my shoulders. My body refused. It was not a thought. It was a locked door inside my chest. My knees softened. The flashlight shook in my hand, beam jittering over the black rectangle. Mara's voice came over the radio, clipped and urgent. Rec Hall head count confirms one missing. Dylan Price, 11. Last seen near registration table 5 minutes ago. The mother screamed in the background. Tessa looked at the canoe. The child vest behind it lifted and dipped. "Evan," she said. I dropped to my knees. For 1 second, I was 10 years old again at a public pool in Worcester. My cousin shoving me off the deep end as a joke. My hand slapping water and finding only more water. The tiled wall a bright blur too far away. Then I was 23, in a dead freezer room, crawling into a sealed access because someone underneath the boathouse had said please. I went in. The passage scraped my shoulders immediately. The knee pads helped, then stopped helping once the floor dipped and cold water soaked through my jeans. I forced air in, 4 counts, held it badly, 4 out. The rope dragged behind me over splinters. The flashlight beam showed old beams furred with white mineral stains, spiderwebs trembling from my breath, a rusted pipe running along the left wall. "Tessa," I called. "Here," she answered from behind me. "Close enough. Not close enough." I crawled 6 feet. The passage turned right. Water deepened from my wrists to my forearms. My breathing got loud in my ears. The beam found a gap ahead where the crawl access opened into the support bay under the boathouse. Beyond it, greenish light moved between pilings. "Connor," I shouted. A weak answer came from the right. "Here." I pushed forward until the ceiling lifted just enough for me to raise my head. He was wedged against a diagonal brace, shoulders and face above water, the rest of him below. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His lips were gray-blue. One ankle disappeared between 2 crossed beams beneath the water. A strip of bright orange life vest was tangled around the brace near him, not his. The adult vest from the rack had been shoved under his armpits, probably the only reason he was still up. His eyes found mine and did not focus right away. "Evan," I said. "I'm Evan. I'm going to get a rope around you." He laughed once. It sounded like choking. "New guy." "Yeah. Worst first week. Technically first day." A breath moved through him that might have been a laugh if he had more strength. I unclipped the throw line from my belt, but kept my harness rope attached. Tessa had said, "Do not untie." My hands were clumsy in the cold. I looped the line under Connor's arms, trying not to shove him down as the water lifted and dropped us both. "Ankle," he gasped. "I know. No, listen." He grabbed my wrist with surprising force. Wire around it, not just stuck. I put the flashlight underwater. The beams scattered in green-brown murk, but I saw enough. A loop of metal cable cinched around his boot and twisted around a support beam. Not fishing line, not debris, deliberate. A snare, my throat closed. "Trauma shears," I yelled. My voice bounced under the floor. Tessa answered faintly. Sending, the rope behind me twitched. A small dry bag slid through the crawl passage and bumped my hip. Inside were trauma shears, a glow stick, and zip ties. I cracked the glow stick with my teeth and dropped it in the water. Green light spread like sickness around Connor's trapped leg. The cable was thin but braided. The shears bit once and slipped. Connor groaned. "Sorry, sorry." Above us, footsteps hammered on the boathouse floor. I froze. Tessa shouted from outside, muffled, "Who's in there?" The footsteps stopped. Then Then came 3 taps on the floorboards above my head. A pause, 3 taps. Connor's eyes widened. He's back. The trap was no longer abstract. A man's voice came through the boards, low and close. "You should have kept them away, Connor. I didn't recognize it." Connor whispered, "Cal." The old photograph flashed in my mind. Younger Nate, younger Leonard, a boy with his face scratched out. Above us, Rollins shouted, "Police, come out now." The footsteps moved fast. A door banged. Noah yelled. Something crashed against the exterior wall. Then there was a splash. "Waterfront," Tessa shouted over the radio. "Suspect moving toward the dock." Under the boathouse, Connor started shaking so hard the line around him vibrated. "Who is Cal?" I asked. "Cal Rusk," he said through chattering teeth. "Camp kid, 2009. His brother drowned. They said he broke protocol. They lied." The words came broken, but enough of them landed. Nate's voice roared somewhere outside. "Cal, stop," a man laughed. Not wild, not cinematic, bitter, exhausted, human. "You remembered my name today," he shouted back. The shears slipped again on the cable. Wanted to be out. I wanted sky. I wanted dry ground and a world where grief did not wait 17 years and come back with bolt cutters. "Evan," Tessa called. "Status." "Cable around his ankle. I'm cutting." "Fire rescue 2 minutes." Connor's head dipped. I grabbed his vest and shoved him back up. "Stay with me. I'm tired." "Yeah, be tired later." The cable finally snapped on the 4th try, but the loose end whipped across my knuckles, slicing skin. The pain came bright and immediate. I almost dropped the shears. Blood threaded into the water, black in the glow stick light. "Cut," I yelled. "Pull slow." The line around Connor tightened. Outside, Tessa and Rollins, and whoever else had hands, began hauling. Connor screamed when his ankle came free. It was not the scream of a man rescued. It was the sound of damaged flesh being reminded it was still attached. He moved 6 inches, then stopped. "Stuck," I shouted. I felt along his side. His belt had snagged on a bolt jutting from the brace. I used the shears again, cutting leather, cutting fabric, not caring. The belt snapped loose. Pull. This time Connor slid toward the access gap. I crawled backward, guiding his head, keeping his face above the water. My harness rope dragged over a beam behind me. Then it caught, hard. I jerked back and got nowhere. The crawl passage behind me had shifted, or the rope had snagged under a bracket. Connor's body was halfway into the narrow access. Her slapped my chin now when I crouched. The boathouse groaned above us as people ran across it, or fought on it, or both. "Tessa," I shouted. "My rope has caught." "One blast," she called. "No, wait." I reached behind myself, fingers numb, searching the rope. It vanished around the brace at an angle I couldn't see. If they pulled hard, it might pin me or drag me sideways under the beam. "Do not untie." Tessa had said it like scripture. But Connor was moving only because everyone outside was pulling him. My rope caught across the passage was blocking him from sliding through. I unclipped. It was stupid. It was necessary. It was both. The instant the carabiner came free, the rope snapped away from my harness and vanished backward. I fed Connor into the access with both hands, shoving his shoulders, pushing his vest, yelling for them to keep pulling. His boots disappeared last, one twisted at a wrong angle. Then he was gone into the crawl, dragged toward air and people and light. I was alone under the boathouse. No harness, no rope, water at my chest. Above and outside, chaos broke into pieces I could hear but not see. Mara shouting, "Keep the parents back." Noah yelling, "He's on the dock." Rollins, "Drop it." A crack split the air, not a gunshot. Wood, the missing dock board. A man shouted in pain. I crawled toward where I thought the access was. My flashlight flickered. The glow stick drifted away. The passage had become a black rectangle among black beams, and my hands were too cold to feel the floor properly. 4 in, 4 out. I counted wrong. Water touched my lips. I spat and lunged forward, cracking my shoulder against a crossbeam. Pain flashed down my arm. The flashlight died. For 1 second, the dark was total and physical, pressing into my mouth and nose. Then a green glow appeared ahead. A glow stick in the crawl passage. June's voice came from beyond it. Evan, follow the light. I did. I don't remember the first few feet. I remember the taste of mud. I remember my knee pad tearing loose. I remember a splinter driving into my palm and staying there. I remember hearing a child crying somewhere far away and realizing it was me making the sound. Hands grabbed my wrists. June and Tessa dragged me out across the freezer room floor, scraping my hip on the hatch frame. I rolled onto my side and vomited lake water and bile onto the concrete. No one made me stand. That was the short lull. Just me on the floor, June's hand on the back of my soaked shirt, Tessa kneeling in front of me, saying my name like a command. Connor nearby, wrapped in an emergency blanket, teeth chattering violently while Rollins' deputy partner held his head still and checked his airway. His ankle looked wrong under wet denim, swollen and angled, but he was breathing. He was out. From outside came a shout, then the slap of running feet. Mara appeared in the annex doorway, hair loose from its tie, face streaked with dirt. Dylan's okay. Tessa sagged half an inch. Where, under the rec hall porch, hiding, he heard adults yelling and thought he was in trouble for going near the dock. The child-sized vest had been bait, another misdirection. But by then it had done what it was meant to do. It had split us. It had made the camp run. What about Cal? Tessa asked. Mara looked toward the lake. Nate answered from outside, voice rough. Caught. We stumbled out together because I needed to see, even if my legs didn't want to work. At the main dock, Deputy Rollins had Cal Rusk face down on the boards with one knee near his back and cuffs on his wrists. Cal was maybe mid-30s, male, local by his accent and sun-beaten skin, wearing a faded Camp Alderwick sweatshirt that had probably once been navy. His hair was wet. Blood ran from his cheek where he'd hit the dock. Beside him lay the missing dock board. He had tried to use it as a bridge over the gap he'd created earlier, or as a weapon, maybe both. Noah sat on the beach holding his forearm. Blood seeped between his fingers. Later, I would learn Cal had swung the board at Rollins, and Noah had shoved him off balance, catching a nail across his arm for the trouble. Not heroic in a clean way. Messy, reflexive, costly. Nate stood several feet away, one hand bandaged, the other hanging uselessly at his side. He looked older than he had that morning. Cal lifted his face enough to see Leonard at the edge of the beach. You closed the file, Cal said. Leonard didn't answer. You told everyone Danny broke the rules. Leonard's mouth opened, then shut. Tessa stepped forward. Cal, where's the other paddle? It was such a practical question that Cal laughed. Rollins pushed his shoulder down. Where? Tessa repeated. Cal's eyes shifted, just once, toward the second platform. The platform where Connor's sweatshirt still lay spread like a body. Tessa swore and grabbed binoculars from the lifeguard chair. I didn't need them. The platform's anchor rope had been cut halfway through, not enough to break while the lake was calm. enough to fail under weight, under rescue, under a child climbing onto it, under anyone trusting it. Tessa saw it. Her face went empty. "That was the last one," Cal said into the dock boards. "You were supposed to close the water, all of it, first thing, like you should have done then." Rollins hauled him upright. Fire rescue sirens finally came down the road, thin and late, threading through the pines. The camp was full of parents, children, police radios, and the sour smell of lake mud drying on my clothes. Connor was alive. Dylan was alive. Cal was in cuffs. The power was still out. The second platform was still floating on a cut rope. The deep water protocol had worked only after almost everyone ignored it. Tessa looked at Leonard. Leonard looked at the lake. Nobody said victory. There wasn't any. There was only the sound of sirens getting closer, the buoy rope knocking wrong against the dock, and Connor sobbing once from the annex, not loudly, not theatrically, just one broken sound from a man who had been pulled out of the dark and would carry the shape of it in his bones. The first ambulance left without using its siren. That was the detail I remember most clearly, even more than Cal Rusk face down on the dock, even more than Connor's ankle turned wrong beneath the silver emergency blanket. The ambulance backed down the gravel drive slow and careful, crunching over pine needles and potholes, lights flashing silently against the trunks. It looked almost polite, like it didn't want to disturb the camp any more than we already had. Connor was inside with an oxygen mask over his face, wrapped in heated blankets, one paramedic holding his IV bag high enough to keep it from tangling in the door. He had spoken twice after they pulled him onto the stretcher, once to ask if Dylan was real, which nobody understood until Mara leaned close and told him, yes, the boy was safe. It had been a trick. The second time, he asked Tessa if he was fired. Tessa put one hand on the stretcher rail and said, "Shut up, Connor." He laughed weakly, then cried without covering his face. Nobody looked away fast enough. I sat on the low stone wall outside the nurse's cabin while a paramedic cleaned the cut across my knuckles and dug a splinter out of my palm with tweezers. My clothes were still wet from the lake. Every few minutes, water dripped from the hem of my shorts onto the dirt between my shoes. My shoulder had swollen into a hard, hot knot where I'd slammed it against the crossbeam, and my hip was scraped raw from the hatch frame. None of it was serious. That made me feel guilty. Noah sat 10 feet away on an overturned milk crate, his arm wrapped from wrist to elbow. The cut from the nail had needed 6 stitches, done right there under the dining hall awning, while his face went the color of pancake batter. He kept staring at the waterfront like the lake might call him back for a second round. "Noah," I said. He blinked. "You good?" He looked at the bandage. I keep thinking if I'd locked the canoe rack better, Connor wouldn't have. "Stop," Tessa said from behind us. Noah's mouth closed. She was standing with her arms folded, hair coming loose from her braid, red guard shirt streaked with mud and lake water. She looked 20 years older than she had that morning. "You are not allowed to turn someone else's crime into your personal performance review." Noah's jaw worked. "I'm a lifeguard. You are 19. That doesn't matter. It matters to me." He looked down. Tessa's voice softened by 1 degree. "You got hurt because you helped stop him. You also disobeyed me 6 times today, and I will yell about that when I have the energy. For now, sit there and keep pressure on your arm." He nodded, and that was all he had left. Deputy Rollins took statements in the rec hall. because it was the only building large enough to hold frightened parents, exhausted staff, and law enforcement without turning the entire place into a rumor mill. The campers had been loaded back into cars or collected in clumps near their parents' legs, still wearing name tags and carrying sleeping bags that would never be unrolled in the cabins. A few cried because they were scared. A few cried because camp was canceled. Kids are strange like that. Their disappointment didn't wait politely for trauma to finish. June kept making coffee. No one asked her to. The power had come back after Nate found the generator's fuel line cut and clamped it well enough for a temporary restart. But lunch was gone as a concept. June brewed pot after pot on a backup circuit and handed mugs to deputies, parents, and staff with the same severe kindness. Her cooler crisis had become evidence somehow. The failed walk-in wasn't a random breakdown. Someone had opened the service panel and loosened a relay. Not enough to destroy it, just enough to make it fail under load. A distraction. Everything had been a distraction or a test or both. By noon, the camp had become a map of yellow tape. The main dock, the canoe rack, the boathouse, the gate, the generator shed, the annex hatch. Little bright borders around ordinary places, turning them into scenes. Cal Rusk was taken away in the second cruiser. He didn't fight by then. He looked almost emptied. Wet hair stuck to his forehead, and the side of his face had puffed purple where he'd hit the dock. As Rollins guided him into the back seat, Cal turned his head toward Leonard. "You finally closed the water," he said. Leonard stood on the office steps with a sheriff's deputy beside him. His face had gone the flat gray of someone waiting for a verdict that had already happened inside him. Rollins ducked Cal into the cruiser before Leonard answered. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe it was procedure. Legal pieces came in fragments over the next few hours, mostly through questions we weren't allowed to answer in detail. Cal Rusk had worked at a bait shop in Millinocket. He had a record for trespassing and one domestic disturbance call from years earlier, but nothing that made anyone look at him before that morning. His younger brother, Daniel "Danny" Rusk, had drowned at Camp Alderwick in 2009 during a staff family weekend, not a camper session. Danny was 13. The public version said he slipped away after dark, took a canoe without permission, and ignored the boundary line. The private version was messier. It came out because Nate talked, not in a speech. Nate was not a speech man. He sat at a picnic table with his bandaged hand in his lap while Rollins asked him questions, and eventually his answers got too heavy to lift around the truth. Danny had not taken a canoe to show off. He had followed a floating glow from the second platform after another older boy dared him. The boundary rope had been moved that night too, not by Cal, not by Danny, but by staff who had shifted it earlier for a training exercise and failed to reset the anchors before dark. Leonard had been assistant director then. Nate had been maintenance. They found Danny after midnight near the old boathouse, caught under a collapsed brace. The camp settled with the family. The paperwork emphasized unauthorized swimming. The moved rope line became an internal note. The old boathouse access was sealed. The deep water protocol was written afterward, not to protect campers from a mystery, but to protect them from a very specific chain of human mistakes nobody wanted repeated out loud. "Why scratch his face out?" Mara asked later. when we were sitting on the steps behind the rec hall with paper cups of coffee gone cold between us. I hadn't realized she had seen the Polaroid too. Tessa answered from the gravel below. She was leaning against the railing, staring at the cabins. Leonard said Cal did it years ago, snuck into the office, found the kit, scratched Danny out of the photo, and left it there. Mara's mouth twisted, and they still kept the photo. Nate said he thought removing it was worse. That is an absolutely camp staff way to handle guilt. Tessa didn't disagree. Leonard resigned before the sheriff's office finished its first round of interviews. That was the official language anyway. He wrote 3 sentences on camp letterhead, folded the paper badly, and handed it to the board president when she arrived from Portland looking like she had driven 2 hours with her teeth clenched. He did not say goodbye to the staff as a group. He did come to the nurse's cabin doorway while I was getting my shoulder taped. For a second, I thought he might apologize. Not to me specifically, to the air, to the morning, to the version of Camp Alderwick that had existed before parents saw deputies photographing a child's life vest. Instead, he said, "You shouldn't have gone into the hatch." The nurse, a small woman named Carol who had been quiet until then, looked up from the tape. He saved a man's life. Leonard's eyes stayed on me. He also nearly became the second rescue. I wanted to hate him for saying it. The worst part was that he wasn't wrong. "I know," I said. He nodded, as if that settled something for him, and walked away. Carol finished taping my shoulder too tightly. Men like that think being right about one piece excuses the rest. I didn't answer because I was afraid she'd ask which kind of man I was. By late afternoon, parents were gone. The cabin stayed empty. Duffel tags and welcome packets littered the office floor. A stuffed rabbit sat on the rec hall piano until Mara found the owner's phone number and promised to mail it back. The lake had gone bright blue under a clear sky, which felt rude. Beautiful, even. The second platform sat out there as if it had not been rigged to break loose. The buoy rope had been pulled to shore and coiled in the sand like a dead snake. Fire rescue cut Connor free from the last twisted bit of cable after he reached the hospital. We learned later that his ankle was fractured in 2 places, with deep bruising from the wire. Hypothermia, mild concussion, infected cuts they wanted to watch. He would recover, said the doctor, which is a phrase people use when they mean the body will continue, even if the person has some catching up to do. Noah's parents came for him around 4. His mother hugged him so carefully, it made his face crumple. He tried to joke about the stitches. Nobody laughed, and he stopped. June threw out hundreds of dollars of food because the temperature logs were ruined. She cried over the chicken, which sounds funny until you've seen a woman hold herself together through attempted murder, and then break over something measurable, something she could write down as loss. Nate stayed until the state police arrived to take a formal statement. Before he left, he walked down to the waterfront with Tessa, Mara, and me. He carried the DWP binder under one arm. "You should burn that thing," Mara said. Nate shook his head. "That's how we got here, putting things away." Tessa took the binder from him. "It needs to be rewritten. It needs to be public," I said. They both looked at me. My voice came out rougher than I expected. Not the gory details, but enough. If a rule exists because someone died, people should know it's not camp theater. Tessa looked toward the water. "Yeah," she said. "They should." We stood there for a while. 4 adults on a beach meant for swim tests and sandcastles, looking at a lake that had never done anything except follow gravity, wind, temperature, and depth. That was the thing I kept coming back to. The lake wasn't evil. The old boathouse wasn't evil. The protocol wasn't evil. People had moved a rope and failed to say so. People had hidden embarrassment inside procedure. People had let grief rot until it turned into a plan with bolt cutters, fishing line, wire cable, and a child's life vest. Grounded things, hardware store things, that made it worse. At dusk, Rollins let us collect personal items from the waterfront shed. The DWP kit sat open on the bench, contents spread for photographing. Glow sticks, shears, throw line, the sealed Polaroid, my whistle. Tessa picked up the whistle, wiped it with an alcohol pad, and handed it to me. "No thanks," I said. "Take it. I don't want a souvenir." "It's not a souvenir." I almost argued, but I was too tired. I put it in my pocket. It felt heavier than it was. Camp Alderwick did not open that summer. The official email to families cited serious safety concerns following an incident involving unauthorized access and criminal vandalism. That was accurate in the way a shadow is accurate. It showed the outline, not the object. Cal Rusk was charged with kidnapping-related offenses, at first because of Connor, then aggravated assault, reckless conduct, criminal threatening, burglary, and tampering with safety equipment. The prosecutors would sort out the exact language. Lawyers love exact language after everyone else has run out of it. His defense, according to a local article Mara sent me later, planned to argue diminished capacity tied to unresolved trauma over his brother's death. I don't know what happened after that. I stopped reading updates after Connor's 3rd surgery. I went back to Worcester with a bruised shoulder, a healing hand, and a new habit of checking exits in buildings I already knew. For 2 weeks, I woke up with my sheets twisted around my ankles and kicked until the mattress thudded against the wall. My mother asked if camp had been that bad, and I told her there had been an accident, because apparently I had learned something from Leonard after all. The first time I swam again was in a YMCA pool in September. Not deep water, not really. Just 12 feet at the far end, blue tiles, lifeguards chewing gum, a kid doing cannonballs despite the sign. I stood at the edge so long an old man in goggles asked if I was waiting for permission. I told him no. Then I got in. My body hated every second. My feet left the slope. The old counting started under my ribs. Empty space below, air above, 4 in, 4 out. I floated on my back and listened to the muffled churn of pool filters, the slap of laying ropes, the ordinary human noise of people not drowning. I stayed for 30 seconds. That was enough. In October, Tessa emailed the former staff a revised waterfront manual. It was plain, blunt, and almost ugly in its honesty. The Deep Water Protocol had a new title, Boundary and Missing Swimmer Emergency Procedure. No ominous red tape. No secret staff, only mythology. The first page included Danny Rusk's name, Connor Bell's name, and a sentence I read 3 times. A rule without its reason becomes a rumor, and rumors do not keep people alive. Mara replied all with, "Put that on the shirts." June replied all with, "Do not make shirts." Noah sent a thumbs up emoji, then, 10 minutes later, a longer message apologizing for rushing the boathouse. Tessa answered him in 2 words, still grounded. It was the closest any of us came to normal. The subtle thing happened later. A padded envelope arrived at my apartment with no return address. Inside was the whistle Tessa had given me, or one exactly like it. At first, I thought I had somehow mailed it to myself with my camp things. Then I checked my desk drawer. My whistle was still there. The one from the envelope was older, more scratched. On one side, someone had carved 3 small initials with a pocket knife. DR, no note, no explanation. I called Tessa. She went quiet when I told her. "Did you send it?" I asked. "No, Nate, I'll ask." She called back an hour later. Nate said Danny's whistle had been buried with the old files after the 2009 investigation. Leonard said he didn't know where it was. Cal, by then, was in custody. "So what does that mean?" I asked. Tessa was silent long enough that I could hear traffic outside my apartment, wet tires hissing over pavement. "It means," she said finally, "someone found another box we didn't. I keep both whistles in the same drawer now. I don't look at them often, but every once in a while, usually when rain hits the window just right or a truck backs up outside with that 3-beep warning, I think about Lake Barlow before sunrise. Fog on the water, a missing board, a sweatshirt spread flat on the platform, adults trying to make danger sound smaller until it slipped under the floorboards and waited for us there. And I think about what Connor said before we pulled him out. They moved it. At the time, I thought he meant the rope line. Now, I'm not completely sure. The shadows fade for now, but the stories never end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and join our community of horror lovers. If you're hungry for more, check out the next video. Just remember, the scariest part is often the one you don't see coming. Welcome to Mia Horror Stories. To make it easier on your eyes, this video plays against a black screen, so you can close your eyes, get comfortable, and let the story take over. But don't relax too much, the ending might just catch you off guard. Stay with me until the very last word. I'll keep this as the opening only, grounded, explainable unease, no supernatural reveal, and an ending choice that sets up the next section without exposing the central conflict. Thought for a couple of seconds. The first odd thing was the song starting before any of us touched the key. Not loud, not dramatic, just a thin, tinny phrase from the dining room, 3 notes that wandered out through the apartment like they had gotten lost. It sounded like a lullaby being played through a telephone receiver. Old metal teeth, a tired spring. Then it stopped with a dry little click, and the refrigerator hummed on as if nothing had happened. I was standing at the stove with one hand on a wooden spoon and the other pressed flat against my lower back, trying to convince myself that burnt garlic could still be rescued if you added enough butter. My name is Claire Donnelly, 31, female, and at the time I lived in a narrow 2nd-floor apartment in Portland, Maine, above a frame shop that smelled permanently of sawdust and glue. I worked remotely for a medical billing company, which meant my days were mostly claim codes, lukewarm coffee, and pretending my kitchen table was a real office. I had a bad habit of buying broken old things because I liked the idea of being the kind of person who could restore them. Chairs with loose legs, lamps with cracked shades, watches that never ran again. I told people it was a hobby. Really, I think I liked objects that came with obvious damage. They made more sense to me than people did. music box sat on our dining room table under the yellow cone of the pendant lamp, surrounded by shredded newspaper and the half-open cardboard box it had arrived in that afternoon. I had bought it from an estate sale listing online, a small Swiss-made cylinder music box from the 1890s, according to the description. Walnut case, inlaid lid, working condition unknown. Those words should have made me reasonable. Instead, they made me click purchase. "Did you do that?" Mark called from the bathroom. Mark Ellison, 33, male, was my boyfriend, a high school history teacher from Vermont with a careful voice and the steady hands of someone who had learned early that panic only made things worse. He was brushing paint flecks out of his hair because the building's hallway ceiling had shed on him again when he came home. Mark believed in receipts, renter's insurance, and reading the instruction manual before plugging anything in. He also had a way of saying my name when he thought I was being impulsive that made me feel 12 years old and guilty. "I'm in the kitchen," I said. The spoon scraped the bottom of the pan. Garlic had gone from gold to brown while I listened. The kitchen smelled sharp and oily, and outside, rain ticked against the window air conditioner with the uneven rhythm of fingernails tapping plastic. Mark appeared in the doorway in sweatpants and a blue t-shirt, towel slung over one shoulder. His hair was damp at the temples. He looked past me toward the dining room. "That was the box. Maybe the spring settled," I said. He gave me a look. "What? Springs don't usually settle into melodies. Old ones might. That's not how old works." I turned down the burner, then turned it off completely because the sauce had clearly given up. It played 3 notes. It probably got jostled in shipping. Mark walked over to the table, but stopped short of touching it. That was his thing. Observe first, touch later. He leaned in, hands on his knees, and the towel slid off his shoulder to the floor. The music box was beautiful in a tired, stubborn way. The walnut case had darkened almost black along the corners, where hands had handled it for 100 years. The lid was decorated with a little marquetry bouquet, pale wood flowers with missing petals. One hinge was newer than the other. The brass key was fixed into the right side of the case, and beside it, taped to the wood, was a folded card about the size of a library checkout slip. I had already read it twice before dinner. Mark read it aloud. Instructions: wind no more than 3 turns. Do not force. Do not wind past 3. He paused. "Claire, it's just an antique warning. Overwinding can damage the mechanism. It says it 3 different ways. Because people are stupid. People buy mystery boxes from strangers on the internet." "Estate sale," I said, "not mystery box. Estate sale from a stranger on the internet." I crossed the room, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Look, the seller said it belonged to her grandmother. It was packed well. It's not like I bought a haunted doll from a roadside barn." Mark looked at me again, softer this time. "Nobody said haunted. I know. I'm just saying." The apartment made one of its usual old building noises then. A pipe knocking somewhere behind the wall, 2 dull clanks, and a shutter. We both glanced toward the radiator, even though it was May, and the heat had been off for weeks. Rain blurred the windows. Across Congress Street, the neon sign of the pizza place smeared red and green across the wet glass. A bus sighed at the stop below, brakes hissing, doors folding open with a rubbery cough. Normal noises. City noises. The kind I usually liked because they made the apartment feel less alone. Still, Those 3 notes had left something behind. Not fear exactly. More like the room had shifted 1 inch while we were not looking. The buzzer rang. I flinched hard enough to knock my hip against the table. Mark noticed. Of course he did. You okay? Fine. I set the dish towel down. That'll be Lena. Lena Morales, 32, female, was my upstairs neighbor, and the closest thing I had to a best friend in Portland, even though we had known each other only 9 months. She was a hospital lab tech, originally from Providence, and she had the particular exhausted cheerfulness of someone who worked 12-hour shifts and still remembered everyone's birthday, collected houseplants, carried pepper spray clipped inside her tote, and had once fixed our clogged bathroom sink with a chopstick and a level of confidence I still envied. She also had no patience for Mark and me circling an argument politely for 40 minutes. I buzzed her in. A minute later, she knocked twice and let herself inside, shaking rain off her jacket. It smells like you murdered dinner, she said. I saved it emotionally, I told her. Mark picked up the towel from the floor. She burned garlic. You can't burn garlic in Maine, Lena said, toeing off her boots. That's basically a hate crime against winter survival. It's May. Exactly. We're still recovering. She came into the dining room with a canvas tote on one shoulder and stopped when she saw the music box. Her face changed in the quick, private way people's faces change when they recognize something from childhood, but do not immediately want to admit it. Oh, she said, that's pretty. You know music boxes? I asked. My grandmother had one, not like that. Hers had a ballerina that looked like she'd seen things. Lena leaned closer, careful not to touch. This one looks expensive. It was cheaper than it should have been. That's always comforting. Mark pointed at the instruction card. Read that. Lena bent down, rainwater dripping from the ends of her hair onto the floorboards. Wind no more than 3 turns. Do not force. Do not wind past 3. She straightened. Seems clear. Thank you, Mark said. I opened my mouth to defend myself and realized I did not actually have an argument. I had not wounded at all. Not yet. The seller had included one blurry photo of the cylinder and comb inside, but I had not opened the case. I had told myself I would clean the outside first, watch a few videos, maybe email a repair shop in Boston if it seemed delicate. But I had also imagined winding it. Of course I had. That was the whole point of buying it, if I was honest. Here's something old work again, because I had been careful enough not to ruin it. There was music a minute ago, Mark said. Lena looked at him. From this, 3 notes, I said. Then it stopped. Was it wound already? I don't know. Mark gave me a small, helpless gesture, like this proved his entire worldview. Lena set her tote on a chair and crouched until her eyes were level with the box. Could have been. If it got wound before shipping and the stop lever shifted, that might happen, right? See, I said, I'm not on your side. I'm on the side of whatever makes everyone less weird. Mark laughed once through his nose. I liked that about Lena. She could open a window in a tense room without making a show of it. I had grown up in a house where every disagreement became a weather system, pressure building, until someone slammed a cabinet or disappeared into a bedroom. As an adult, I hated conflict so much that I often overcorrected into secrecy. I did things first and explained later, because explanations felt like asking permission. The music box was one of those things. Mark had only learned about it when the delivery came, and he found the package wedged between our apartment door and the stair rail. He hadn't yelled. Mark didn't yell. Somehow that made it worse. Lena noticed the pot on the stove. Were we eating before or after this became an episode of Antiques Roadshow with anxiety? After, I said. I ordered Thai. You burned dinner and ordered Thai before telling us. I made a judgment call. Mark smiled despite himself. She's improving. For about 20 minutes, everything eased. The Thai food arrived in a paper bag gone soft at the bottom from steam. We ate pad see ew and curry out of takeout containers at the coffee table because the dining table was occupied by my questionable purchase. Rain kept needling the windows. The radiator pipes knocked once more, and the neighbor's dog downstairs barked at footsteps in the hall. Lena told us about a man at the hospital who had fainted during a routine blood draw and apologized to the floor before apologizing to her. Mark complained about a parent who had emailed him 3 paragraphs arguing that the Boston Tea Party was basically vandalism with branding. I pretended to listen while my eyes kept drifting to the music box. It did not move. It did not play. It sat there with the instruction card taped to its side, looking less ominous the longer nothing happened. That was how unease worked on me. At first it had teeth. Then, if nothing confirmed it, I started to feel embarrassed. Embarrassment was dangerous because it made me bold in stupid little ways. I would rather be reckless than seem dramatic. After dinner, Mark gathered the containers. Lena stood at the dining table, reading the seller's printed note from the box. Purchased from the estate of Margaret H. Bell, Cape Elizabeth, Maine, she read. Original owner unknown. Box has not been serviced. Handle with care. There's a phone number handwritten at the bottom. For the seller, Mark asked. I think so. Lena squinted. Name S. Elise. Elise told me her grandmother had it in storage, I said. She was clearing out the house. Mark looked at the music box. You should call her tomorrow and ask if it was wound. I can message her tonight. Good. There it was again. That gentle good. Sensible, adult. A word that quietly placed me in the other category. I reached for the box. Mark said, Claire, I'm not winding it. I lifted both hands a little. I'm opening the lid. Lena backed up half a step, smiling. For the record, I am here as a witness, not an accomplice. The lid stuck at first. Old varnish clung near the seam, and when I eased it upward, the hinges gave a thin squeal that made Mark wince. Inside, the mechanism was smaller and more intricate than I expected. A brass cylinder pricked with tiny pins, a steel comb with narrow teeth, a governor fan shaped like 2 little wings. The inner wood smelled dry and sweet, like pencil shavings and attic dust. A folded strip of paper lay tucked along the inside wall. I did not see it until Lena said, There's something in there. I used tweezers from my junk drawer to lift it out. The paper was brittle, cream-colored, torn unevenly on one end. Not antique, I thought. Old, but not 1890s old. Maybe a few decades. Someone had written on it in blue ballpoint pen. Mark leaned over my shoulder. I read it silently first, and my stomach tightened in a way that annoyed me because the words were not frightening. They were just instructions, not more than 3. If already wound, let it finish. Never hold the lid open while playing. If it skips, stop. That's weirdly specific, Lena said. Mark reached for his phone. I'm looking up the model. Don't, I said too quickly. Both of them looked at me. I felt heat rise in my face. I mean, yes, look it up, but don't do that thing where you find one forum post from 2008 and decide it's going to explode. Music boxes can injure fingers, Mark said. Those comb teeth are sharp. I know. You do know. That's why I'm looking it up. His voice was still calm, but tired had crept into it. Not tired from school or the rain or the burnt dinner. Tired from being the person who always had to ask whether I had thought something through. Lena touched my wrist lightly. Hey, nobody's saying you did anything wrong. But that was exactly the problem. They were both being kind. Kindness left me nowhere to put my defensiveness, so it just buzzed under my skin. Mark searched for markings inside the lid. There's a maker's stamp. Paillard. St. Croix. Swiss, Lena said. Yeah, Mark typed. Some of these have stop-start levers. If it played during shipping, it might still have tension in the mainspring. The music box gave a small sound. Not music this time, a tick. All three of us stopped moving. Another tick followed, softer, from inside the mechanism. Then a faint metallic tremble, like the cylinder had shifted a fraction of an inch and settled. Mark slowly lowered his phone. Okay, Lena whispered. Did the comb move? I didn't touch anything, I said. I know. The rain seemed louder because none of us spoke over it. A car passed outside, tires dragging water through the gutter. Somewhere in the building, a door opened and closed. Normal, normal, normal. Then the music box played one note. A single bright blink. Lena stepped back into the chair behind her, and its legs scraped the floor. Mark reached toward the lid, then stopped himself with his hand hovering above the case. If already wound, let it finish, he said. It's not finishing, I said. My mouth had gone dry. It's doing one note at a time. Maybe the mechanism's gummed up. Then we stop it, right? Lena asked. The paper says if it skips, stop. Mark looked at me, then at the brass key fixed into the side. Stopping it means touching the mechanism or finding the stop lever. I don't know what I'm doing. I stared into the open box. The cylinder's pins caught the pendant light in tiny hard points. The governor fan twitched once, barely. There was no reason for it to feel like the thing was waiting. Machines did not wait. They failed, stuck, slipped, unwound. That was all. And yet my apartment had narrowed around that table. My phone buzzed on the counter. I jumped again. Mark picked it up and glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Answer it, Lena said. It's probably spam, I said, but I took the phone. The number had a main area code. I swiped. Hello. For 2 seconds, there was only static and room noise. Then a woman said, Is this Claire Donnelly? Yes, this is Elise Bell. I sold you the music box. I looked at Mark, then Lena. Lena's expression flattened into attention. Oh, I said. Hi, I was going to message you. I know this is strange, Elise said. Her voice sounded older than I expected, thin and breathy, with traffic noise behind it. Did you wind it? No. Are you sure? I haven't touched the key. A pause. Is the lid open? My fingers tightened around the phone. Mark mouthed. What? Yes, I said. Elise exhaled, and the sound cracked in my ear. Close it. The music box blinked again. This note was lower. Mark heard it from where he stood. His face changed. Elise said, Close it gently. Don't latch it. Don't turn the key. Don't try to make it finish. The instructions inside say, Let it finish if already wound. I know what they say, Elise replied, and for the first time her voice sharpened. Those were my mother's instructions. They were for when it still worked properly. Lena whispered, Ask her what's wrong with it. I repeated the question. Elise did not answer right away. I heard a car horn on her end, then the muffled slap of windshield wipers. It was in storage for a reason, she said. I shouldn't have sold it. I thought it was empty. I thought the key had no tension left. The music box gave another tick. Mark reached for the lid. I caught his wrist before I realized I was moving. He looked at my hand on him. Not angry, worried. Elise said, "Claire, is someone there with you?" "My boyfriend and my neighbor." "Good. Have one of them close the lid, then put the box somewhere it won't be disturbed until I can come by." "You're coming here. I'm already on my way." I looked toward the window, at the wet street below, and the smear of headlights sliding through rain. The apartment smelled like curry, burnt garlic, damp wool from Lena's coat, and old wood from the open music box. My ordinary life crowded around a table. Mark gently pulled his wrist free. "We should close it." Lena nodded, but she did not come closer. I looked down at the strip of paper still lying beside the box. Not more than 3. Never hold the lid open while playing. If it skips, stop. The mechanism clicked again. This time, the cylinder moved enough for all of us to see it. Elise said through the phone, quieter now, "Please don't test it." That sentence landed worse than any warning could have. Because there are warnings people give when they understand a machine, and there are warnings people give when they understand a person. Mark's hand hovered over the lid. I had a choice then, though it did not feel like one. Close the box and wait for a stranger who had already admitted she should never have sold it. Or look closer, just for a second, while the mechanism was exposed, and the answer might still be visible in brass, pins, and old wood. The music box played 3 notes in a row. Not a melody yet, a beginning, and none of us moved. Mark closed the lid. He did it carefully, the way he handled cracked coffee mugs and student essays turned in late with apologies attached. 2 fingers on the edge, palm flat above the inlay, pressure slow enough that the hinges only gave a small complaining squeak. The last 3 notes thinned as the lid came down, like someone had moved the song into another room. Then the latch clicked. The sound made all 3 of us breathe at the same time. Elise was still on the phone. "Did you close it?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Good. Do not wind it. Do not open it again. Put something heavy on top of the lid." Mark frowned. "Why?" I repeated it into the phone, though Elise had spoken loudly enough that he probably heard. "Because if the lid jumps while the spring is under tension, it can throw the stop lever," Elise said. "The mechanism is damaged. The comb teeth can snap. There may be loose pins inside." That was reasonable. That was worse, somehow. A simple mechanical hazard put a shape around the fear. Not ghosts, not curses. Sharp metal, old tension, bad repair work. A thing could hurt you without meaning to. Lena grabbed the nearest heavy object, which happened to be Mark's hardcover copy of the Civil War and American Memory, and set it on the lid. "Not insulting the theme," she said, voice tight. "But this thing is not holding back a machine explosion." "It's fine," Mark said automatically, though his eyes stayed fixed on the box. A muffled tick came from inside. The book shifted maybe a millimeter. Maybe I imagined that. Elise said, "I need you to listen carefully. I'm about 25 minutes away, maybe 30 with the rain. Until then, keep the box level and away from heat." "Do you have a bathtub?" "A bathtub," I asked. "Porcelain or fiberglass?" "Fiberglass." "Fine, put it in the tub, close the bathroom door. If anything lets go, the tub is easier to contain than a table." Lena looked at me. "Contain." Mark held out his hand for the phone. "Let me talk to her." I passed it over before I could object. My palm came away damp. "Elise, this is Mark Ellison. I'm Claire's boyfriend. What exactly is inside this thing that needs containment?" He listened. His face changed while Elise talked, but only in small increments. His mouth flattened. His brows drew together. He said, "A mainspring can do that." Then, after another pause, No, I understand. Yes, we can move it. I hated not hearing both sides. I hated that I had made myself the least informed person in a room where I owned the dangerous object. Lena nudged my shoulder. You okay? I'm fine. You keep saying that like you're trying to pass a test. Before I could answer, Mark lowered the phone. The spring housing may be cracked. If the spring uncoils suddenly, it can rip through the case or throw bits of the mechanism. Not like a bomb, he added quickly, seeing my face, but enough to cut someone, especially if the lid is open. Lena stared at the walnut box under the history book. So antique grenade, but classy. Elise says it was repaired badly years ago. Someone overwounded, forced the key, and the stop mechanism doesn't reliably hold. It already started playing, I said, which means the stop slipped. From the phone, Elise's voice rose faintly. Mark put it back to his ear. Yes, he said. Okay, we'll move it now. The time-sensitive problem was suddenly plain. We had to get the box off the table and into the tub before whatever tension remained inside unwound or broke loose. Elise was coming, but not soon enough to make waiting feel smart. The spring could hold for minutes or let go in the next second. None of us knew. That ignorance turned the apartment into a place full of wrong angles. The walk from dining table to bathroom was only 15 feet, but it crossed a narrow strip of floorboards that bowed slightly near the hall, past the kitchen doorway where my tote bag sat waiting to trip somebody, past the radiator pipe that always stuck out a little too far from the wall. I'll carry it, Mark said. No, I said. He looked at me. Claire, it's mine. That is not a reason. It kind of is. No, it is. This isn't about ownership. Stung because he was right, and because he had said it in the exact careful tone that meant he was trying not to sound right. Lena stepped between us, palms slightly raised. Nobody gets a bravery medal for holding the cursed, sorry, mechanically unstable music box. We need a plan. It's not cursed, Mark and I said at the same time. Lena's eyebrows went up. Mark rubbed his forehead. We can slide it onto a cutting board. Keep it level. Carry the board. Use oven mitts, Lena said. And safety glasses if you have them. I have sunglasses, I said. That's not the same, but sure, fashion the shrapnel away. Mark gave me the phone. Elise wants to keep talking. I brought it back to my ear. Hi, you need 2 people to carry it, Elise said. Don't tilt it. Don't let the key catch on anything. You said the key has tension. I said don't touch it. That's not the same thing. She went quiet. Elise, I don't know how much tension is left, she said. When it was put away, my mother taped the key because she said it still wanted to turn backward. I removed the tape before photographing it. I should not have done that. The room tightened around me again. You took the tape off. I thought it looked bad for the listing. Lena must have read something in my face because she mouthed, What? I shook my head once. Mark came back from the kitchen with the largest cutting board we owned. A thick maple slab we had used exactly twice because it was too heavy for normal chopping. He set it on the table beside the music box. Lena pulled on my oven mitts, then handed Mark a pair of leather winter gloves from the coat hooks. I'm helping, I said. Mark did not argue this time. Maybe he heard something in my voice. Maybe he finally understood that telling me to step back would make me more likely to do something stupid. We removed the book. The music box sat still. No ticking, no notes. The sudden quiet made the refrigerator seem loud. Its compressor rattled, settled, and rattled again. Rain ran down the window in long vertical threads, blurring the streetlights into orange smears. "On 3, Mark said. Lena stood near the bathroom door, ready to clear the path. "Not past 3, she muttered. I almost laughed. The sound caught in my throat instead. Mark slid his gloved fingers under one side of the box. I took the other. The walnut felt heavier than it looked, dense with metal and old wood. For a second, nothing happened. Then the key twitched. Not a full turn, not even close. A little recoil against Mark's glove, a brass insect movement. He jerked his hand back. The box dropped half an inch onto the table. Inside, something struck something else. A sharp metallic clack. "Don't." Lise shouted through the phone so loudly I heard it even though it was on the table now. We froze. The box began to play. Not the scattered single notes from before. A proper phrase, muffled by the lid and the weighted air of the room. Tinny, uneven, too fast in places, dragging in others. The melody sounded familiar, but warped, like a children's song remembered by someone who had only heard it through a wall. Mark's face had gone pale under the kitchen light. "It slipped," he said. "Do we still move it?" Asked. Elise's voice crackled from the phone speaker on the table. "Yes, move it now. If it's running, you have less time. Keep it level, don't cover the key. If the key unwinds backward and catches, it can shear." "Can what?" Lena snapped. "Break," Mark said. "She means break." The music box stuttered. 3 notes repeated, then repeated again. The same 3, a hitch in the mechanism, a skip. I looked at the hidden instruction strip lying beside it. "If it skips, stop." "Elise," I said louder. "It's skipping." No response. "Elise." The phone screen had gone dark. I tapped it. The call was still connected, but the audio had dropped into static. Mark grabbed his phone. "I'll call her back." "You don't have her number," I said. "It's on your phone." The music box repeated the 3-note phrase again, faster this time, the comb buzzing under the lid. I could feel the vibration through the table. It ran up through my fingertips, which I had not realized were pressed hard against the edge. Lena stepped to the window and looked down at the street. "We can take it outside instead." "In this rain," Mark said. "It's not made of sugar. It's an antique with a compromised spring. It's also currently playing the world's worst nursery rhyme in Claire's dining room. No outside." Elise's voice snapped from the phone suddenly, making us all startle. The call had cleared for only a second. "Do not carry it downstairs. Keep it away from people." Then static swallowed her again. Away from people. That made the apartment feel crowded. Not just with us, but with everyone above and below. Mr. Brackett under us, with his wheezing old dog. The young couple across the hall with their baby, who cried every night around 11. Lena's roommate upstairs, who worked early shifts and wore headphones everywhere. The building was old wood, old wiring, old pipes. If something cracked and a shard went through Mark's hand, that was one kind of emergency. Panic sent us stumbling into the hallway with a heavy box. That was another. Mark called Elise back from my recent calls. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. "Great," Lena said. "Perfect." The music skipped again. I heard the phrase clearly now. 3 rising notes, then a drop. It was not a song I could name, but my body seemed to expect the next note. It never came. The missing note made the repetition worse, like a cough that would not clear. "We move it," I said. Mark nodded. "Bored now?" This time we did not lift the box directly. Mark tilted the cutting board's edge against the table, while I used a folded towel to nudge the music box sideways. The case scraped over the wood. Every inch sounded too loud. The key trembled, but did not turn. Lena held her breath so visibly her shoulders rose. "Slow," Mark said. "I am going slow. Slower than that. If I go any slower, we're aging with it." The box slid onto the cutting board. The music stopped. For one sweet second, nobody moved. Then from inside came a grinding noise, small and nasty, like a pepper mill full of sand. Mark and I lifted the board together. The weight surprised me. Not physically, emotionally. It made the problem real in my hands. My forearms tightened, and the old fear inside me, the one that hated being watched while I failed, began whispering that I had done this. I had brought it here. I had made everyone else stand around my mistake, holding oven mitts and fear. The board tipped a fraction toward me. "Level," Mark said. "I know. Claire, I know." The snap in my voice made Lena look at me. We took one step. The floorboard near the dining table groaned under Mark's heel. The music box shifted on the board, sliding less than an inch toward the edge. I corrected too fast. The key brushed the towel bunched near my hand. The key turned backward. A quarter turn, maybe less. But the effect was immediate. The lid jumped. Not open. Just a hard upward knock against its own latch, enough to lift the front edge and slam it back down. The cutting board kicked in our hands. I yelped and almost dropped my side. Mark caught the board against his hip. Lena lunged forward, then stopped, because there was nowhere safe to grab. "Put it down," she said. "No," Mark said through his teeth. "Keep going." The bathroom was 10 feet away. 8. Hallway light flickered, not ominously, just the stupid old fixture that had needed replacing since January. But the timing was so bad that Lena actually said, "Are you kidding me?" Then the apartment went dark. The music box began playing again. For half a second, there was no sound except the tinny melody and rain on the air conditioner. Then the building around us reacted. A muffled "Oh, come on," from downstairs. A baby started crying across the hall. Somewhere above, a chair scraped. Power outage. The storm had finally knocked something loose. "Nobody move," Mark said, but my arms were already shaking. The cutting board dug into my fingers through the towel. My shoulder had started to burn. In the dark, the music box was a shape heavier than vision. The key clicked softly, unwinding against nothing. Lena turned on her phone flashlight. The beam cut across the hallway, bounced off framed photos, landed on my face, then the box. "Bathroom," I said. "Claire, wait," Mark said. "We can't see the floor." "I can, you're panicking. I am carrying it. Both things can be true." The words hit hard because they were not cruel. They were accurate. I swallowed. The apartment smelled suddenly hot, though the stove was off. Metal, rain, curry cooling in open containers. My own sweat under my shirt. Lena lowered her voice. "Claire, look at me." I looked. "We are going to take 2 steps at a time. I'll light the floor. Mark calls the steps. You only listen to the steps, not the box, not Elise, not the fact that this is absolutely going in my top 5 worst Thursdays." That nearly broke the tension, but not enough. Mark inhaled. "Okay, step 1, we moved. Step 2, the board stayed mostly level. The music dragged and skipped, the same phrase beginning, failing, beginning again. Step 3, my right foot landed on the strap of my tote bag. It slid. Not far, just enough. My knee buckled, and my side of the cutting board dropped. The music box shot toward me. I slammed my forearm up by instinct. The brass key scraped across the inside of my wrist. A hot line opened there, immediate and clean. I hissed, more angry than hurt, and shoved the board back level. Blood ran into my palm. "Claire," Mark said, "keep moving. You're bleeding. It's a scratch." It was not a scratch. I could feel the sting spreading, could feel wetness under my fingers. Stopping meant admitting the exact thing I could not stand admitting, that my mistake was hurting people, starting with me, and still not finished. Lena kicked the tote bag aside and moved backward toward the bathroom. 2 more steps. The bathroom door was open. Her phone light filled the small room in harsh white pieces: shower curtain, sink, medicine cabinet, chipped tile tub. We reached the threshold. A heavy knock came from the apartment door. All of us froze. Another knock, fast, insistent. "Claire," and called from the hallway. "Everything okay in there?" Mr. Brackett from downstairs. 70-something male, retired postal worker, nosy in the way lonely people are nosy, with a bad knee and a dog named Pickle that barked like a smoke alarm. He must have heard the drop, the voices, the music through the floor. "We're fine," Mark shouted. The music box skipped loudly, a bright metallic chatter that did not sound fine. Mr. Brackett tried the door handle. The knob rattled. Lena's face went sharp. "Why is he doing that?" "He has a spare key," I said. "What? For emergencies?" Mark stared at me. "Since when?" "Since the pipe leak. You gave our downstairs neighbor a key. He helped me when you were at school." The lock clicked. That small domestic sound opened a whole new pocket of fear. We were standing in the dark, with an unstable antique music box balanced between us, one of my wrists bleeding onto the cutting board, while an elderly man with a spare key was about to walk directly into the path we had barely managed to clear. It was not his fault. That made it worse. If he startled us, if he bumped the board, if Pickle pushed through behind him, if the door swung into Lena's back, "Mr. Brackett, don't come in," Lena yelled. The door opened 2 inches. Hallway emergency lights spilled in, dim red from the stairwell fixture. Rainy air moved through the apartment, smelling of wet coats and old carpet. "I heard a bang," he called. "The power's out." "I thought, close the door," Mark said. The music box gave one harsh clack. The lid jumped again. This time, the latch popped halfway loose. A bright blade of sound escaped from the gap, louder and uglier, the melody suddenly naked in the apartment. The governor fan whirred inside like an insect trapped in a jar. Mark swore. Lena shoved her shoulder against the bathroom doorframe to keep from stumbling. Mr. Brackett pushed the apartment door wider. And from the phone lying somewhere back on the dining table, Elise's voice came through on speaker, faint but clear enough. "Do not let anyone else near it." The latch snapped fully open. The lid lifted a 1/4 inch. Not enough to see inside. Enough for something small and metallic to ping out, strike the bathroom tile, and skitter under the sink. Mark and I stood at the edge of the tub, still holding the board. The music box was open now, and the only way to get it contained was to carry it the last 2 feet while it played. The last 2 feet felt longer than the hallway had. The bathroom in my apartment was narrow enough that 2 people could not stand shoulder to shoulder without one of them bumping the sink. Tub along the left wall. Sink straight ahead. Toilets squeezed between them under a little frosted window painted shut by someone before I was born. The door opened inward from the hall, and just outside it, the hallway ran back toward the dining room where my phone still lay on the table. Elise's voice breaking in and out like a bad radio signal. Mark and I stood at the threshold with the cutting board between us. The music box sliding slightly on the maple surface. Each time, our hands trembled. Lena was half inside the bathroom, half in the hall, holding her phone high so the flashlight hit the tub. Mr. Brackett stood by the apartment door behind us, a dim outline in the red emergency light from the stairwell. The music box lid had lifted a 1/4 inch. It was enough. The notes came out sharper now, thin and needling, each one followed by a scrape inside the case. The melody kept trying to become something gentle and kept failing. It snagged on the same little phrase, 3 notes up and 1 broken rattle down. "Tub," Lena said. Her voice had gone flat and professional. "Put it in the tub." Mark's jaw was tight. "On 3. "Don't say 3, I snapped. He stared at me. "Sorry," I said, "just don't." "1, he said carefully. 2, now." We stepped forward together. The board crossed the threshold. My socks slid on something wet, probably rain from Lena's boots or blood from my wrist. I caught myself against the doorframe with my elbow, and the music box lurched toward Mark. "Level," he said, strained. "I'm trying." The edge of the cutting board hit the tub rim. For 1 dangerous second, we were stuck there. Too high to set it down, too low to back out cleanly. The bathroom light was dead because the power was out, and Lena's phone beam kept shaking because her hand kept shaking. The open lid buzzed against its loose latch. Then Mark lifted his side just enough, and I shoved mine forward. The cutting board tipped. The music box slid into the tub with a heavy wooden thud. It landed upright. The song stopped. Nobody spoke. The silence afterward was not empty. It had the rain in it, and Mr. Brackett's breathing from the apartment doorway, and the faraway fussing of the baby across the hall. My wrist pulsed hot and wet under the towel I had wrapped around it without remembering when I did it. "Okay," Lena said. "Okay, that's better." And the music box gave 1 clean tick from inside the tub. Mark stepped back. "Claire, out." I did not move. The loose metallic piece that had flown out was still under the sink. I could see a tiny crescent of it catching Lena's flashlight beam near the wall, between dust and a stray hair tie. It looked like part of a comb tooth or a pin. Evidence, my stupid brain told me. Proof of what had gone wrong. The kind of thing a repair person would need. "Claire," Mark said again. I bent toward it. Lena grabbed the back of my shirt. "Nope, I need to get that piece. You need to get your hand looked at. It's important. The antique shrapnel can wait." From the apartment door, Mr. Brackett called, "Is somebody hurt?" His voice had that elderly neighbor mix of concern and authority, like he was already deciding whether to call 911 or come in farther and make everything worse. "Stay there," Lena said sharply. Mr. Brackett went quiet. Mark turned toward him, keeping 1 hand stretched behind him toward me as if he could block me from the tub by instinct. "Mr. Brackett, there's broken glass in here." It was a lie. A good one, immediate, practical. "Glass," Mr. Brackett said. "From an antique," Mark said. "Please don't come in, we've got it contained." The box ticked again. This time the key moved. A slow backward creep, less than 1/8 of a turn, but in the flashlight beam it looked alive. It clicked against the side of the case, paused, clicked again. Lena swore under her breath. Contained does not mean calm. The first attempt had succeeded only halfway. The box was in the tub, yes, but the lid was open. The mechanism was still under tension, and now the tub amplified every small sound. Each tick came back at us brighter off the fiberglass walls. Mark took my towel-wrapped wrist and lifted it into the light. His teacher face vanished. That's not a scratch. It's not deep. It's bleeding through. It's fine. Stop saying that. The words came out louder than he meant. They bounced off the bathroom tile. I looked away first. Lena softened her voice. I have a first aid kit upstairs. Better than whatever Claire keeps in the medicine cabinet, which is probably expired Band-Aids and a candle. I have gauze, I said. Where? I pointed with my chin. Medicine cabinet. Lena opened it and found exactly what she expected. Loose adhesive bandages, ibuprofen, a thermometer, tweezers, a small roll of gauze hardened around the edges from humidity, and a bottle of antiseptic that expired the year before. She gave me a look. Don't, I said. I didn't say anything. You said it with your eyebrows. Mark took the gauze. Press here. He wrapped my wrist too tightly. I winced. Sorry, he said immediately, and loosened it. The music box started playing again. All three of us jerked. This time, with the lid cracked open and the tub acting like a cheap speaker, the melody came through fast and bright for maybe 4 seconds. Then it snagged, the same phrase, the same missing note, the same grinding catch beneath it. Mark looked toward the hall. We need Elise. I'll get my phone, I said. You're bleeding. I can walk. I'll get it, Lena said. She edged sideways out of the bathroom, careful not to bump the cutting board now leaning against the tub. The apartment layout was simple, but in the blackout, it felt rearranged. Bathroom at the end of the short hall, kitchen to the left, bedroom to the right, dining room straight ahead beyond the hall, living room beyond that with the front door opening onto the stairwell. Lena moved through it with her phone light angled at the floor, stepping around my tote bag, then around the smear of blood where I had slipped. Mr. Brackett stood just inside the apartment now, not at the threshold anymore. Inside. Mr. Brackett, Mark said. The old man raised both hands. He was wearing a beige cardigan over pajamas and one slipper, with the other foot bare in a dark sock. Behind his legs, Pickle pushed a gray muzzle through the crack of the door. I heard a woman yelling, he said. And that music. It's handled, Mark said. It doesn't sound handled. The music box answered him with another high, skipping phrase. Pickle barked. The sound ricocheted down the hall, sharp enough that I felt it in my teeth. Inside the tub, the music box rattled hard, then knocked once against the fiberglass, as if the vibration had shifted it. The lid jumped a little higher. Get the dog out, I said. I've got him, Mr. Brackett said, bending awkwardly. Pickle barked again and lunged toward the hallway. The second attempt began as a mistake. Lena tried to retrieve my phone while Mr. Brackett tried to catch his dog, and both movements collided in the dining room. I heard Lena say, "Whoa, whoa, stop," then the scrape of chair legs, then my phone clattering across the floor. The flashlight beam spun crazily over the ceiling. For one awful second, the light hit the dining room wall, and I saw a tall shape there with raised shoulders and a long face. I shouted. Mark grabbed my arm. What? There. The shape moved. Lena screamed too, a short punched-out sound. Then her flashlight steadied, and the terrifying figure became Lena's raincoat hanging from the back of a chair, thrown into monstrous proportions by the phone light and the pendant lamp above the table, which was dead, but still swaying from someone bumping it. The long face was the strap of her tote bag. Coat, Lena said, breathless. It's my coat. It's just my coat. The explanation helped and did not help. My body had already spent the fear. It left me shaky and embarrassed, which was becoming a theme. Pickle barked again, lower this time. The music box responded with a sudden whir. Not a note, a mechanical spin, like a toy car wheel running too fast. Mark turned back toward the tub. Something's slipping. The lid rose another inch. Inside, the brass cylinder was visible now, rotating in little uneven jerks. One strip of the steel comb had bent upward. I knew nothing about music box repair, but even I could tell it looked wrong. The bent tooth flicked with every pass and failed to settle. That was the skip. That was the catch. Not an omen, not a code, a damaged tooth and maybe a loose pin. That should have comforted me. Instead, it meant there was a physical piece of metal repeatedly striking under tension until it either freed itself or broke. "Close the lid," I said. Mark looked at me. Elise said, "Don't open it." "It's already open." She said, "Don't touch it." She also said, "Don't let anyone near it, and Mr. Brackett's dog is about to join the band." Mr. Brackett had finally scooped Pickle under one arm. The dog kicked weakly, still barking. "I can take him downstairs." "No," Lena said from the dining room. "Everyone stays where they are until we know what we're doing." "I can help," Mr. Brackett said. "You can help by closing our front door." He bristled at that, because old men who have lived in a building for 20 years do not enjoy being ordered around by young women in wet socks. But he did close the door. The emergency red light narrowed and vanished, leaving only phone beams and the gray window glow from rain outside. Lena found my phone under the dining table. Call dropped. "Call her back," I said. "I am." The line rang, and rang, and rang. Voicemail. Mark crouched beside the tub, not too close, studying the latch. "If we can put weight on the lid, maybe it stays down." "With what?" I asked. "Laundry basket." "My laundry basket is plastic. Books. The heavy ones are in the dining room." Lena appeared in the hall, holding both phones. She texted. She read from the screen. "Running late. Road closed by down branch. 15 more. Do not touch mechanism. If lid opens, isolate room. Keep people away. If sound changes to grinding, leave apartment and call fire department." The tub made another grinding sound. Nobody moved for half a second. Then we all spoke at once. "Call them," Mark said. "We can't leave it," I said. "What do you mean, fire department?" Lena said. Mr. Brackett called from the living room. "Did you say fire department?" The music box played 6 notes in a row. It was the longest phrase yet. For one breath, it almost sounded sweet. Then the bent tooth caught, snapped back, and the box jumped in the tub hard enough to thump against the side. A small crack appeared near the tub drain, not in the music box, in the fiberglass. "Okay," Lena said. "I hate that." Mark stood. "We're calling." "I don't want firefighters coming for a music box," I said. The second the sentence left my mouth, I heard how insane it sounded. Mark heard it too. His face softened, which somehow made me want to cry. "Claire," he said, "this is not about being embarrassed." "Yes, it is." "No, it's about not letting an unstable metal mechanism injure somebody. It's my fault. That doesn't change the procedure. There is no procedure for this. There's always a procedure. You isolate, you evacuate, you call people with equipment." I laughed once, ugly and breathless. "You sound like a safety poster. And you sound like someone who would rather bleed on the floor than admit she needs help." That landed clean. Lena looked between us and said nothing. The music box ticked again, softer now, slower. For a moment, I saw the whole apartment mapped in my head. The box in the tub at the back, us crowded in the hall like idiots, the kitchen to the left with the stove off, but still smelling faintly scorched, the dining table with newspaper scraps, and the cellar's cardboard box. The living room with Mr. Brackett near the door holding his trembling dog. The exit was behind him. The safest direction was out. The thing I wanted most was to stay and prove I had not ruined everything. My wrist throbbed under the gauze. "Call," I said. Lena already had her phone open. She dialed 911 and put it on speaker. The dispatcher's voice was calm enough to make the apartment feel briefly less feral. Lena explained it better than I could have. Antique mechanical device, damaged spring, metal pieces expelled, minor injury, power outage, apartment building. She did not say cursed. She did not say haunted. She did not say music that started by itself. She made us sound like adults dealing with a weird hazard. The dispatcher asked if there was smoke or fire. No, any chemicals. No, any trapped persons. Lena glanced at us. No, any immediate threat to life. The music box gave a violent metallic chatter from the tub. Lena closed her eyes. Possible laceration hazard. We're evacuating. The word evacuating seemed to settle the question. Partial attempt 2 had failed too. Calling for help did not solve the box. It only introduced a new deadline. We needed to get 4 adults and a panicked dog out of the apartment without crossing too close to the bathroom if the mechanism broke. But the hallway forced us past the bathroom door. There was no back exit. The bedroom window opened to a drop over the alley. The fire escape was on the living room side, which meant the only route was from bathroom to hall to dining room to living room to front door. We had trapped ourselves at the wrong end. "Everybody moves now," Mark said. He took my good hand. I pulled away automatically. He looked hurt, then covered it. "Claire, I can walk. I know." That time, I let him hold my hand. Lena went first, lighting the floor. She passed the bathroom door, then the kitchen, then stopped near the dining table to move the chair with the coat before anyone could trip again. Mr. Brackett opened the apartment door and stepped into the hall with Pickle tucked tight to his chest. Mark guided me forward. I had taken one step past the bathroom when the music box began grinding again. Not behind the lid now. Inside the room with us, amplified by the tub, louder and lower than before. The sound rolled through the hallway like a drill biting through wood. "Keep moving," Mark said. Then the bathroom door swung inward. At first, I thought the box had done it. That was the shape fear chose. Impossible movement, the door pushed by something with intent. But the explanation came half a second later. The cutting board we had leaned against the tub had slipped, knocked the door with its corner, and the old hinges, always loose, always drifting, carried it slowly open. The door opened wider. The tub came into view. The music box lid was up nearly halfway now, trembling. The brass cylinder spun in broken bursts. A bright steel strip inside had peeled loose from the comb and was vibrating wildly, sawing against the underside of the lid. Mark stepped in front of me. "Go," he said. I did. We reached the dining room. Lena was at the living room doorway. Mr. Brackett stood just outside in the apartment hall, and the red emergency light from the stairs outlined his shoulders. Then my phone rang on the dining table. Elise. The name flashed across the screen. I stopped. Mark saw where I was looking. "No, she knows what to do. We are leaving. She said if it grinds, leave and call the fire department." We did that. Now she's calling. The phone rang again. In the bathroom, the music box made a sound like a wire snapping. A metallic ping struck the medicine cabinet mirror. Glass cracked with a bright spiderweb sound, Everyone flinched. I grabbed the phone. Mark said my name, but I was already answering. "Elise, are you out?" she asked. "Almost." "Is it grinding?" "Yes." "Did the lid open?" "Yes." A pause. Rain hissed on both ends of the call. "Listen to me," she said. "Do not leave the apartment door open." I stared toward the living room. Mr. Brackett had the door wide open. Lena was halfway through it. The stairwell beyond held emergency red light and the dim outlines of neighbors' doors. What? If the box throws parts, fine. If it catches fire, fine. The fire department handles that. But do not leave the apartment open. Mark turned toward me. "What is she saying?" Elise spoke faster. "There's a loose governor blade. If it comes off spinning, it can travel." My brother was cut across the face because he stood in a doorway. Close every door between it and people. That was the first specific injury she had given us. Not legend, not vague dread, a brother, a face. "Elise, why didn't you tell us that?" "Because you would have opened it to look." She was right. That was the worst part. The music box screeched. Lena shouted from the apartment hall, "Claire, move." From downstairs came sirens, distant but real, threading through the rain. Mark reached for the front door. "Everyone out. Then we close it." "No," Elise said through the phone. "Close the bathroom door first." The bathroom door was open at the far end of the hallway. Between us and it lay the path we had just escaped. The box rattled so hard the tub boomed. A second piece of metal shot out, hit the bathroom doorframe, and fell into the hall, spinning on the floorboards like a coin. It came to rest near my blood smear. The apartment had become a straight line of risk. Front door, living room, dining room, hall, open bathroom, box in the tub. Leaving meant the front door stayed open long enough for neighbors to gather, and for whatever came loose to have a clear shot down the hallway. Closing the bathroom door meant someone had to go back. Mark looked at the bathroom, then at me, then at Lena. "I'll do it," he said. "No," I said immediately. "I'm closest." "You're not. That's not how distance works." "Mark," he stepped away from me. The music box gave one final clean run of notes, almost perfect, almost pretty. Then the key on its side spun backward so fast it blurred. The lid flew open. Something inside struck the tub hard enough to crack the fiberglass with a sound like a bat hitting ice. Mark had already started down the hallway, and behind him, in the living room, Mr. Brackett lost his grip on Pickle. The dog bolted back into the apartment, straight toward the music. There was no retreat after that. Not for Mark, not for me, not for any of us. Pickle was small enough to disappear under chairs, and fast enough to make 3 adults useless. He shot past Mr. Brackett's shin, nails skittering on the living room floor, a gray-white blur with his leash trailing behind him. The music box screamed from the bathroom, and the dog went toward it like the sound was a whistle only he understood. "Pickle," Mr. Brackett shouted. Mark turned. That turn saved him from the first piece. Something came out of the bathroom low and fast, a silver flicker that crossed the hall where his face had been half a second earlier. It struck the framed print outside the bedroom door with a sound like a snapped guitar string. The glass cracked in a clean diagonal line. Mark ducked hard enough to hit one shoulder against the wall. "Down," Lena yelled. We all dropped, except Pickle. The dog kept running. I don't know what part of me moved first. It wasn't courage. I wish I could say it was. It was guilt given legs. I saw that little dog headed into the open bathroom, saw Mark starting after him, saw the front door standing open behind us, with the red stairwell light beyond it, and there was no room left in my head for careful decisions. I ran. "Claire," Mark shouted. My socks slid on the floorboards. My wrist throbbed under the dirty gauze. Hallway tilted in flashes. Kitchen doorway on my right, bedroom door on my left. The blood smear near the bathroom threshold. The tiny metal piece lying beside it like a dropped fishhook. The music box was in the tub, lid thrown open, key spinning backward in violent little bursts. Every few seconds, the cylinder seized, then jumped, and the steel comb gave off that mangled nursery phrase as if the mechanism were chewing through it. Pickle hit the bathroom tile and slipped. He yelped, not from injury, from surprise. His paws went out, and he skidded into the bath mat bunched near the tub. That gave me 1 second. I grabbed his trailing leash. The dog jerked forward, choking himself against the collar, scrabbling toward the tub. "Back," I shouted uselessly, as if dogs in panic respected English. The music box clattered. The loose governor fan inside became visible for the first time, one little brass wing wobbling wildly on its post. Lisa's warning came back clear and horrible. If it comes off spinning, it can travel. I wrapped the leash around my left hand. Pain sparked through my cut wrist so bright I nearly let go. Mark reached me from behind and hooked one arm around my waist. "Move back, I've got him." "Then pull." We pulled together. Pickle fought like something twice his size, claws scraping the tile, body low and stubborn. He barked once, then gagged against the collar. "Don't choke him," Mr. Brackett cried from the living room. "Then get over here and help," Lena snapped. "No," Mark shouted. "Stay back." Everything was too loud. The music, the dog, the rain, the sirens, closer now but still below us, muffled by wet brick and old windows. The whole apartment had narrowed into a single corridor of bad choices. The music box stopped playing. That was worse. Inside the tub, the brass key spun half a turn backward, paused, then slammed forward against its stop. The case jumped. The tub wall cracked farther, a white, jagged line running toward the drain. "Door," I said. Mark understood. "We need the bathroom door." It hung open behind us, inward into the bathroom, useless, because the cutting board had wedged near the tub, and the dog leash stretched across the threshold. Closing it meant clearing the doorway. Clearing the doorway meant getting Pickle out, or trapping him inside with the box. Lena appeared crouched at the hall entrance with one of Mark's heavy history books held in both hands like a shield. "What do you need?" she asked. "Blanket," Mark said. "Something thick." "Bedroom, bedspread." Lena vanished into the bedroom. The music box gave a sharp metallic chatter. I saw something lift inside the case. A thin strip of steel, bent like a fingernail, trembling harder and harder. "Claire, let go of the leash," Mark said. "No, we can drag him by the bedspread. If I let go, he's in the tub." "Your wrist," I know. The gauze had gone red. Blood slicked my palm and made the leash slippery. I tightened my grip, and the cut opened wider with a hot, tearing sting that made the edges of my vision blur. Mark shifted beside me. He took the leash above my hand, closer to Pickle's collar, giving me slack. "Okay," he said. "On my count, we pull him sideways, not back, toward the sink, away from the tub." I nodded, though I was not sure I understood. The music box clicked once. A clean little tick, then another. It sounded almost calm. "Now," Mark said. We hauled Pickle sideways. His paws slipped on the tile, and he slammed lightly into the base of the sink. The dog yelped again, but the angle broke his drive toward the tub. Mark grabbed him under the belly with one gloved hand. A piece of metal snapped loose. It hit Mark in the forearm. He made a sound I had never heard from him. Short, animal. He fell back against the sink, clutching his arm. Pickle broke free. I screamed his name, though he wasn't my dog. Lena rushed in with the bedspread bundled in her arms. It was our old gray quilt, the one Mark hated because stuffing poked out at the corners. She threw it low, not at the box, but over Pickle. The dog vanished under fabric. For 1 second, the quilt became a thrashing mound. "Grab him," Lena shouted. I dropped onto the bath mat and threw my body over the moving bundle, pinning him with my chest and elbows. Pickle writhed under me, growling and coughing. Lena helped, pressing the edges down, keeping the fabric between us and his teeth. Mark was on his knees by the sink, teeth clenched, blood running from a cut across the outside of his forearm. The shard had sliced through his glove and sleeve. Not deep enough to sever anything, I hoped, but deep enough that his fingers were already wet and trembling. "Mark," I said, "dog first." Lena bundled Pickle tighter. "I've got him." A crash came from the tub. The music box had shifted. The cracked tub floor dipped slightly under it, and water from the dripping faucet, water I had barely noticed earlier, had pooled near the drain. The box rocked against the tub wall. The lid hung all the way open now. Inside, the cylinder turned in ragged bursts, and the governor blade wobbled so badly it blurred. "Elise said close the door," Mark said. "Also said leave," I said. "She also said people get cut in doorways." He looked at his arm. I looked too. The message was clear. We had to stop the line of fire. Not stop the box. Not repair it. Not solve its history. Just get a barrier between that failing mechanism and the rest of the apartment before it threw something into the hall, into Lena, into Mr. Brackett, into a firefighter coming up the stairs. Lena shoved the bundled dog toward me. "Take him." "I can't. Take him." I grabbed the quilt with my good hand and hooked my bleeding wrist under it. Pickle thrashed once, then went still except for frantic panting. Lena moved to Mark. "Can you stand?" Yes, he could, but barely. His face had gone waxy. Lena pressed a towel from the sink rack over his forearm and pushed his hand down on it. "Hold pressure," he nodded. The music box spun up again. This time, the melody became almost whole. It flooded the bathroom, thin and sweet, and wrong only because of where we were, what it was doing, what it had already done. For a few seconds, beneath the rain and sirens and our breathing, I heard the song the box had probably been built to play in some clean parlor a century earlier. A little waltz. Nothing sinister. Just delicate machinery doing what it had been designed to do, after too many hands had forced it past what it could bear. Then the missing note came. The comb tooth caught. The governor blade screamed. "Out," Mark said. "No," Lena said. "Door first." She grabbed the cutting board wedged near the tub and yanked. It came loose too fast and banged against the tile. The music box jumped at the impact. All of us flinched. "Careful," Mark snapped. "I'm being careful," aggressively. She shoved the board upright between herself and the tub, using it as a shield. Then she reached with her foot and kicked the bunched bath mat away from the door path. The bathroom door could swing now, but not fully. The quilt bundle with Pickle and me blocked it. "Claire," Lena said. "Haul now." I crawled backward, dragging the quilted dog against my ribs. Pickle was shaking so hard I could feel it through the fabric. My wrist left red smears on the floor. Mark staggered after me, still pressing the towel to his arm. We crossed the threshold. Lena stayed inside. "Lena," I said, "I've got the door." "No, you don't." She looked at me once. I had never seen her afraid like that. Not dramatic, not wide-eyed, just focused so tightly that fear had been compressed into usefulness. She held the cutting board in front of her body and reached for the door with her other hand. The music box shrieked. A piece flew out and struck the cutting board hard enough to bury itself in the maple with a dull thunk. Lena jerked back. "Lena," Mark shouted, "I'm fine." Her voice cracked on the last word. She pulled the door. It swung halfway, then stopped. Something blocked it near the floor. The second metal piece, the one that had spun into the hallway near my blood smear. It had slid under the bottom edge of the door, wedging against the uneven floorboard. For one stupid second, nobody understood. Then I saw it. "The piece," I said, "by the bottom hinge." Lena looked down. "I can kick it." "No," Mark said. Another metallic snap rang from the tub. The governor blade was coming apart. I could hear the pitch changing, climbing. The whole box rattled now, not in little ticks, but in a continuous shaking that made the tub boom like a drum. From the living room, Mr. Brackett shouted, "Fire Department S here." Heavy footsteps sounded in the stairwell below. Voices, radios. The front door was still open. "Close the apartment door," Mark yelled. "I'm not leaving you." "Close it." Mr. Brackett hesitated, then did it. The door shut with a solid thud, cutting off the stairwell sounds to a muffled murmur. That bought us one barrier. We still needed the bathroom door. I set the quilted pickle against the bedroom doorway and grabbed the long metal shoehorn Mark kept by the coat rack, the one I made fun of because he acted like 33 was old enough to need equipment to put on boots. It was hanging by the hall bench. "Claire," Mark said, seeing me, "I can reach it. You are hurt. So are you. That's not a plan. It's the only one." I lay flat on my stomach in the hallway, keeping my head low, and to the side of the bathroom doorway, not in front of it. The floorboards smelled of dust, rain, and my own blood. I slid the shoehorn forward, arm extended, trying to hook the metal piece wedged under the door. The music box roared. That is the only word for it. Not music now. A roar made of tiny parts failing at impossible speed. Lena pressed herself against the wall inside the bathroom, cutting board shield up, one hand still on the door edge. "Hurry, I'm trying." The shoehorn touched the loose piece. It skittered away. "Damn it." "Again," Mark said. His voice was tight but steady. "Breathe, use the curve." That almost made me laugh because of course he was teaching me how to rescue us with a shoehorn. I adjusted, reached again. The metal piece spun once, glinting in Lena's phone light, then caught in the curve. "Got it." "Pull," Lena said. I pulled. The piece scraped free. The door swung another few inches, pushed by Lena's shoulder. Then the music box detonated, not like an explosive, not fire, not some cinematic blast. It failed mechanically and violently. The mainspring housing let go with a ripping metallic crack, followed by a thunderous bang as the case slammed against the tub wall. A scatter of small parts hit fiberglass, tile, wood, and the inside of the bathroom door in a burst of sharp, irregular impacts. Lena screamed, or kicked against her hand. I flattened myself to the floor. Something zipped over me and hit the hallway wall. Another piece struck the doorframe. Mark dropped over my legs, shielding me with his body despite the blood pouring down his arm. The music box kept thrashing in the tub for another 3 seconds. 3 seconds can be long. First second, rattling impacts, Lena gasping behind the door. Second, The melody chopped into two bright notes, repeated once, then mangled into scraping. Third second, the key spun backward with a final rapid clicking like a fishing reel, then snapped off. The brass key hit the inside of the door. Then everything stopped. Not silence. Never silence. There was the rain, the dog panting under the quilt, Mark's breath against my shoulder, Lena crying once, and then swallowing it, the distant fire department pounding on the apartment door. But the music had stopped. The mechanism had stopped. The box was done. For a few seconds, nobody trusted that. I said into the floor, no answer. "Lena, I'm here," she said. Her voice came from behind the partly closed bathroom door. "Close, too close, I'm hit." Mark pushed himself off me. "Where? My hand, maybe my cheek, I don't know. Can you move away from the tub? I think so. Don't step on anything." She laughed once, shaky and almost angry. "Great note." Mark tried to stand and almost fell. I caught his shirt with my good hand, which helped him less than it made me feel useful. The apartment door shook under a heavy knock. "Portland Fire Department." A man called. "Open the door," Mr. Brackett shouted back from the living room. "There in the bathroom." "Open the door," Mark called to him. "Let them in." I heard the locks, Mr. Brackett fumbling, then the door opening and voices filling the apartment. Boots on wood. Radio crackle. A flashlight beam swept the hall bright and white, making everything look worse. Blood on the floorboards, glass cracked in the picture frame, the shoehorn in my hand. The half-closed bathroom door pocked where metal had struck it. A firefighter crouched beside us. Male, maybe 40s, helmet dripping rainwater onto our floor. He took one look at Mark's arm, then at my wrist. "Anyone still in the bathroom?" "Lena," I said. "She's behind the door. The device is in the tub. It threw metal." The firefighter did not laugh at device. He did not ask why we had an antique music box failing like industrial equipment. He just turned his head and called, "Eye protection." "Gloves. We've got mechanical debris, possible sharp fragments." That comm nearly broke me. Another firefighter moved past us with a hard case and heavy gloves. They opened the bathroom door slowly, using a tool, keeping their bodies out of the direct line. Professional. Simple. Exactly what we had not been. Lena stepped out with one hand wrapped in a towel and a thin cut along her cheekbone. Blood had tracked down to her jaw. She looked furious. "I hate antiques," she said. I started crying then, not loudly, just leaking, useless tears that I could not wipe because one hand was bloody and the other was still tangled in the quilt around Pickle. Mr. Brackett came down the hall, face gray. "Pickle." "He's here," I said. The quilt moved. A firefighter helped unwrap the dog carefully. Pickle emerged shaking, eyes huge, but alive. He sneezed, then immediately tried to lick my chin. Mr. Brackett made a sound that was almost a sob. Mark sank against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor. The towel on his arm was soaked. "Hey," I said, crawling closer. "Hey, look at me. I'm okay. Don't say that." His mouth twitched. "Fair." The firefighter replaced the towel with proper gauze and pressure, then looked at me. "You too?" "I'm fine," I started. Mark looked at me. I stopped. "I'm bleeding," I corrected. The firefighter nodded, as if that was a much better answer. Behind them, inside the bathroom, another firefighter shone a light into the tub. I could see only pieces from where I sat. The walnut case had split along one side. The lid hung loose on one hinge. The brass cylinder was crooked, its pins bent and glittering. The comb looked like a mouth with broken teeth. The key was gone from the side, snapped clean off. It looked small again, just a ruined old box in a cracked tub. Elise arrived 10 minutes later, though it felt like an hour. She appeared in the doorway soaked to the knees, hair plastered to her face, one hand pressed over her mouth when she saw the haul. A firefighter stopped her from coming farther. "I'm Elise Bell," she said. "I sold them the item. I can explain." Nobody wanted her explanation yet. The paramedics came next. They checked Mark's arm first. The cut was long and ugly, but shallow enough that the worst bleeding slowed under pressure. He would need stitches. Lena's cheek needed cleaning, maybe adhesive strips. Her palm had a puncture where a fragment had gone through the skin between thumb and forefinger. My wrist needed stitches too, and the paramedic said the word tendon in a way that made my stomach drop before adding that movement looked intact. The fire crew taped the bathroom doorway and collected fragments with gloved hands. They put what remained of the music box into a metal evidence container they usually used for damaged batteries or small hazardous objects. One of them told another to watch for stored spring tension even after failure. Stored tension. That phrase stayed with me because that was what the whole night had been. The box, yes, but also me, Mark, the things Elise had not said, the things I had not wanted to admit, pressure hidden in something polished and old until one careless movement gave it a way out. Mark rode with me in the ambulance because he refused to let me go alone, and because the paramedic said his arm needed treatment anyway. Lena went in a second unit after arguing that she could drive herself with one hand and half a cheek. Mr. Brackett stayed behind with Pickle and a firefighter, looking suddenly much older than he had when he first opened our door. As they wheeled me down the stairwell, I saw Elise standing in the hall outside my apartment. She held a small strip of blue painter's tape in her fingers. Old tape, curled and useless. I knew without asking that it had come from the key. She looked at me, and whatever apology she had prepared died before it reached her mouth. The conflict was over in the practical sense. The music box had failed. The mechanism had spent itself. The fire department had contained the remains. But as the stretcher bumped down the stairs and rain blew in through the propped front door of the building, I could still hear the missing note. Not in the apartment, not from the box, just in my head, waiting for the melody to finish. At Maine Medical Center, the emergency room had the usual late night weather rhythm. Wet shoes squeaking on tile, coats dripping over chair backs, nurses moving with tired purpose, the television in the corner playing a muted local news segment about flooded roads and downed branches. Nothing about it cared that an antique music box had just ruined my bathroom. That helped, oddly. The world had not paused. People came in with normal injuries. A teenager with a swollen ankle from slipping on a porch step. A man holding a towel to his eyebrow after walking into a cabinet during the outage. An older woman wrapped in a blanket, coughing into a tissue while her daughter argued softly with someone on the phone. The bright hospital lights flattened everyone's disaster into forms and wristbands and waiting. Mine was orange plastic. Mark's was blue. We sat side by side in a curtained bay while a nurse irrigated the cut on my wrist with saline that felt like ice water and needles. I tried not to look, then looked anyway. The wound was longer than I wanted it to be, a clean red line across the inside of my wrist where the key had scraped me open. The paramedic had been right. I could move my fingers, tendons intact. That was the phrase everyone kept saying like a blessing. Tendons intact. Mark's cut was worse to look at, but according to the doctor, also mostly shallow. A steel fragment had sliced along the outside of his forearm, missing anything important by less than an inch. He needed 10 stitches. I needed 7. Lena needed 3 in her hand and adhesive strips on her cheek. She was in the next bay over, separated by a curtain that did not stop her from participating. "I heard that," she called when the doctor told me to keep my wrist dry. "I didn't say anything," I said. "You were about to say you could shower with a grocery bag taped around it, and it would be fine." Mark looked at me. "Were you?" "No," Lena made a noise through the curtain. The doctor, a woman with silver hair pinned up behind her head, glanced between us. "No dishwashing, no lifting, no soaking, no antique repair." "That last one feels targeted," Mark said. "It is," the doctor replied without smiling. I laughed, then cried before the laugh had finished. It came out ugly and abrupt. The nurse paused with the gauze in her hand. "I'm sorry," I said immediately. "You don't have to apologize for that," she said. But I did, or I felt like I did. I had been apologizing in my head since the ambulance ride. To Mark for the blood on his sleeve, to Lena for the cut on her cheek, to Mr. Brackett for pickle shaking under my ruined quilt, to whoever would have to repair the bathroom and clean the floorboards, to myself maybe, though I was not ready for that one. Mark reached over with his uninjured hand and touched 2 fingers to my knee. Not a grand gesture, just contact. "I should have called someone sooner," I said. "You did call," he said. "Lena called. You said to, after arguing." "Yes," he said. "After arguing." I looked at him. He did not soften it. That was kinder than softness. He let the truth sit there without dressing it up. "Cross the curtain," Lena said. "For what it's worth, I also should have stopped making jokes about the antique grenade and called earlier." "You made jokes because we were scared," Mark said. "True, still." The doctor finished wrapping my wrist. "You were dealing with an unusual situation in a power outage. Nobody reacts perfectly." I nodded because that was what patients were supposed to do when medical professionals offered comfort. But it did not reach very far. A Portland police officer came after midnight, rain still shining on the shoulders of his jacket. His name was Officer Hanley, late 40s, male, with a calm, blunt way of speaking that made me think he had spent many years taking statements from people who were embarrassed by emergencies. He asked each of us what happened, separately first, then together for clarification. He did not smirk when I said music box. He wrote it down. "Antique mechanical device," he said. "That's how the fire department logged it." "Sounds better," Lena said from the next bay. "More accurate," Officer Hanley replied. He asked about the seller, Elise Bell, the listing, the instructions, the hidden note, the phone calls, whether she had disclosed any mechanical hazard before shipping it. I showed him the messages from the sale, my hands clumsy because the bandage restricted my thumb. The listing was still there in my email confirmation. "Working condition unknown," he read. "That's common for antiques," I said, then hated myself for defending her. Officer Hanley looked at me. "Common doesn't cover known danger." Mark gave me a quick look. "Not told you so." More like, "Please hear that." The fire department had taken the remains of the box. "Not as criminal evidence yet," Officer Hanley said, "but as part of the incident report." The building manager had been contacted, because the bathroom was damaged and the apartment needed temporary safety clearance. The tub had cracked enough that it could not be used. Small metal fragments had embedded in the door, baseboard, and the cutting board. One had punched into the hollow bathroom door and stayed there. "What happens to Elise?" I asked. "That depends on what she knew and what she failed to disclose," he said. "There may be civil liability. Maybe more, maybe not. We'll talk to her." "She knew enough," Mark said quietly. Officer Hanley did not answer that directly. People convince themselves of a lot when they want something gone. That stayed with me too. People convince themselves of a lot when they want something gone. By 2 a.m, we were released with stitches, antibiotics for Lena's puncture wound, instructions to watch for infection, and enough paper discharge summaries to make the whole night feel bureaucratic. The rain had eased to a mist. The power had come back on in our neighborhood, though the hallway lights in the building flickered like they resented being asked. Lena's roommate picked her up. Before she left, Lena hugged me carefully, one-armed, avoiding both my wrist and her own bandaged hand. "I'm mad at you," she said into my shoulder. "I know. I'm also glad you grabbed Pickle. I know. And I never want to see anything with a winding key again. That one I can promise." She pulled back and looked at me with the adhesive strip shining pale on her cheek. "Can you?" I did not answer right away. Then I said, "I can try." She accepted that because Lena had always preferred honest half answers over pretty lies. Mark and I took a cab home. Neither of us wanted to talk in the back seat, and the driver kept glancing at our bandages in the rearview mirror, but did not ask. Portland passed by in wet fragments, dark storefronts, puddles reflecting traffic lights, a man in a raincoat walking a dog that kept stopping to sniff storm drains. Normal life, carrying on with no idea that our apartment had a taped-off bathroom and a missing music box. At the building, Mr. Brackett was waiting in the first-floor hall in his cardigan, and both slippers this time. Pickle sat beside him on a leash, wrapped in what looked like a child's fleece blanket with cartoon whales on it. The dog wagged when he saw us. I crouched too fast, and my wrist protested. Pickle licked the air near my chin. "He's all right?" I asked. "Vet says he's dramatic, not injured," Mr. Brackett said. His voice was rough. That was his professional diagnosis. Mark smiled faintly. "Sounds accurate." Mr. Brackett looked from Mark's arm to my wrist. "I'm sorry I opened the door. I thought someone had fallen." "You were trying to help," I said. "I should have listened when you told me to stay put. I could have said it was fine. It was not fine, so I said, we all should have listened sooner." He nodded once. That seemed to satisfy something in him, or in me. Our apartment door had a fire department notice taped to it. The living room smelled of wet boots, smoke from someone's equipment, disinfectant, and old wood dust. The power was on, but every light felt too bright. The dining room table was still covered with newspaper and the empty cardboard box. The hidden instruction strip had been bagged by the police, along with the outer card. The bathroom door was closed with yellow tape across it. "Do not enter." That should have been comforting. It was not. The apartment looked almost normal if you did not look down. But there were blood smears on the floorboards near the hall, a cracked picture frame by the bedroom, and the maple cutting board leaned against the wall with a steel fragment buried in it like a nail. The firefighter had marked it with a strip of tape because they wanted to photograph it before removing anything. Mark saw me looking. "Don't touch it," he said. "I wasn't going to." He waited. "I really wasn't," I said. "I believe you." That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made my throat tighten. We slept badly in the bedroom with the door open because neither of us wanted to be separated from the exit route. Every radiator tick woke me. Every car passing outside became a faint mechanical whir in my half-dreaming head. Twice, I reached toward my phone to check if the music box listing had vanished. I stopped myself both times. The next morning, the building manager came with a contractor. A fire department inspector came too, then left after confirming there was no continuing hazard. The contractor, a man named Walt who had patched half the building over the years, stood in our bathroom doorway and whistled low. "Never seen a tub lose a fight with a music box," he said. Nobody laughed. He apologized immediately. The damage, once daylight hit it, was both worse and smaller than my memory. The tub had 2 cracks, one near the drain and one along the side where the box had slammed into it. The medicine cabinet mirror was spiderwebbed. 3 tile chips, 1 gouge in the door, a scattering of tiny dents in the wall. The kind of damage you could list on an invoice. The kind that made terror look almost silly. Almost. Officer Hanley called that afternoon. Elise had given a statement. Her brother, Thomas Bell, had been injured by the music box in 2006 when he tried to fix it for their mother after it had been overwound by a cousin at a family gathering. He had leaned into the open lid while turning the key backward, and a governor blade had come loose, cutting his cheek and just missing his eye. After that, their mother had taped the key and written additional instructions. The box went into storage when she died. Elise admitted removing the tape for the listing photos. She admitted she knew the mechanism was unsafe. She said she did not think it would still have enough tension to matter. Working condition unknown. I thought about how many terrible things hide behind ordinary phrases. There would be insurance claims, statements, maybe a lawsuit if Mark or Lena wanted one. Mark did not know yet. Lena said she wanted Elise to pay her hospital bill and also personally write an apology to Pickle. Mr. Brackett agreed. The remains of the music box were not coming back to me. Officer Hanley said they would be held until the reports were complete, then likely disposed of or released depending on liability. I did not argue. 2 days later, Elise came to the building. I saw her from the window before she buzzed. She stood on the sidewalk holding a folder against her chest, her coat collar turned up against wind from the harbor. She looked smaller in daylight. Less like the voice on the phone, more like someone who had made one selfish decision and then had to keep living inside it. Mark was at the kitchen table grading late assignments with his injured arm propped on a pillow. He saw my face. "No," he said, "she's downstairs." "No, I want to hear what she says. She can say it to the police." "I know." He set down his pen. "Claire." This time, the way he said my name did not make me feel like a child. It made me feel seen, which was harder to push against. "I'm not letting her up," I said. "I just want to answer the intercom." He considered that, then nodded. When Elise buzzed, I pressed the button, but did not unlock the door. "Claire," she said through the speaker. "Yes, I wanted to apologize in person. You can apologize from there." There was a pause. Street noise hissed through the intercom behind her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you. I should have thrown it away years ago." "Yes," I said. "I thought if someone who collected these bought it, they'd know how to handle it." I told you I was new to music boxes. I know, the intercom crackled. She said, my mother always said not to wind it past 3 because Thomas turned it 5 times when it was already tight. She blamed him for years. Then after she died, I found a receipt from a repairman saying the spring housing was cracked before that. It wasn't only him. She knew. That was the one part that loosened something in me. Not forgiveness, not absolution, something colder and more useful. People kept passing the blame along, I said. Yes. And then you passed the box along. She was quiet. Yes, she said. I looked toward the dining room table, now cleared, except for a vase Lena had brought over with grocery store daisies in it because, she said, this room needs something that did not try to maim us. I don't want you in my apartment, I said. I understand. You should pay for Lena's medical bills, and Marquez and mine, and the bathroom deductible if insurance doesn't cover it. I will. I did not know if she could. I only knew she said it. And don't sell anything else from that estate without checking it, I added. Another pause. I won't. I let go of the intercom button. A second later, through the window, I watched her stand there as if waiting for more. Then she turned and walked away down Congress Street, folder still clutched to her chest. Mark came up behind me, careful not to crowd. Okay, he asked. No, better, a little. That was the shape of the next weeks. Not okay. A little better. The tub was replaced. The bathroom door was patched, but not perfectly. If the light hit it from the side, you could still see the repaired gouge. Mark's stitches came out cleanly, leaving a pale line on his forearm. Lena's cheek healed into a small mark she claimed made her look mysterious, though she stopped wearing dangling earrings for a while because they brushed the sensitive skin. My wrist healed slower. For weeks, every time I bent it, the new skin pulled tight and reminded me of the key turning backward. I stopped buying antiques. First dramatically, then practically. I deleted saved searches. I unsubscribed from estate sale emails. I boxed up the broken watches and cracked lamps and loose-legged chairs and donated the harmless ones, threw away the rest. Mark did not gloat. He helped carry the boxes downstairs. One Saturday, he found me standing by the dumpster with a brass table clock in my hand. It doesn't work, I said. I assumed. It's probably fixable, probably. I hate throwing it away. I know. I looked at the clock. I think I liked things better when the damage was visible. Mark leaned against the brick wall, careful with his arm. People are harder. Yeah, so are music boxes, apparently, I laughed. A real one this time. Small, but real. Lena came down the alley with coffee for all of us and saw the clock in my hand. Nope, she said. You don't even know what this is. It has gears. I'm against it. I put it in the dumpster. The sound it made was dull and final. By June, life had mostly reassembled itself. Work emails returned. Groceries had to be bought. The frame shop downstairs kept smelling like sawdust. The pizza place across the street still smeared neon across our windows at night. Mr. Brackett brought Pickle up once with a thank you card written in shaky block letters from both of them. Pickle tried to steal one of Mark's socks and seemed emotionally recovered. Humans took longer. Sometimes Mark and I still paused around each other before disagreeing, as if checking the floor for hidden pieces. Sometimes I caught him watching my hands near anything breakable. Sometimes I bristled at that, then remembered blood on his sleeve and tried to breathe before speaking. We got better at saying smaller truths earlier. That sounds simple. It was not. The legal part ended less dramatically than stories make it seem. Lisa's homeowner's insurance and a personal settlement covered medical bills and repairs. The police did not bring criminal charges, at least not while we were involved. Officer Hanley said negligence was clear, criminal intent was harder. Mark was angry about that. Lena said money was not justice, but it bought antibiotics and a new bathroom mirror. I stayed somewhere between them. The fire department eventually released a short report. Mechanical failure due to stored spring tension and prior damage. Flying debris hazard. Improper disclosure by seller noted in police report. No fire. No hazardous materials. 3 minor injuries. Minor. I read that word 5 times. It was accurate. It was also obscene. The remains of the music box were destroyed as part of the settlement agreement. I did not ask for proof. I told myself that was healthy. I still sometimes pictured the brass cylinder, crooked and glittering in the tub, the comb teeth bent like a broken mouth. In late summer, after the apartment stopped smelling faintly of dust and antiseptic, I found one thing the cleanup had missed. It was under the radiator in the hallway, back where the pipe came through the floor. I noticed it while sweeping. A tiny brass pin, no longer than a grain of rice, caught in a gap between 2 boards. For a while, I only stared at it. Then I got tweezers, a plastic bag, and a flashlight. Careful, boring, procedural. I did not touch it with my fingers. I did not call Mark from the other room and make him deal with it. I picked it up, sealed it in the bag, and set it on the kitchen counter. When Mark came home, I showed him. His face went still. Where was it? Under the radiator. We should call Officer Hanley. I know, and Walt to check the floor gap. I know. He looked at me, waiting for the fight that would have happened before. I handed him the phone. He smiled, but only a little. That night, after the pin had been collected and the radiator gap taped until Walt could inspect it, I woke to rain tapping the window air conditioner. Same rhythm as that first night. Uneven, fingernails on plastic. For one moment, half asleep, I heard 3 notes. Thin, tinny, almost pretty. I sat up so fast my wrist ached. The apartment was dark and ordinary. Mark breathed beside me. A bus sighed at the stop below. The radiator pipe clicked once as it cooled, then again, then stopped. No music, just an old building settling. I lay back down, but I did not sleep for a long time. Because the thing about a song that never finishes is that your mind keeps trying to finish it for you. And sometimes, in the most ordinary moments, it almost does. The shadows fade for now, but the stories never end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and join our community of horror lovers. If you're hungry for more, check out the next video. Just remember, the scariest part is often the one you don't see coming.